The teleportation array in the Shadow Realm teleported the two of them back to the island entrance. Since time was not a concept in the Shadow Realm, nothing had changed on the island. The dead bodies of the vampires littered the sandy shore while the ship danced with the wind on the blue sea. Not even a second passed here, Michael said after looking at the dead bodies. The blood on the sandy shore was just as warm as he left. Sabrina took a deep breath, calming her mind and soul. She had gone through so many things over the last couple of weeks. Now she wanted nothing more than a good sleep on her own bed. However, the fact that Ghost was the Dark Lord and Noah might come across him worried her. She witnessed the Dark Lord in action and truly feared for Noah's life. I can teleport you outside the void line. From there, you can fly to Kethan. Michael quickly bought a teleportation scroll from the system and threw it at Sabrina. What will you do? Sabrina, this is where we will depart, Michael said, instead of answering her question. If I were you, I'd tell everything Guardians, and the vampires did to you to your brother and sister. The far your brother is from the Guardians, the better for him. What about you? Will you tell him if you get the chance? Asked Sabrina bewilderedly. Make no mistake, Sabrina. As long as your brother is a Guardian and coming after me, he'll be my foe. I don't usually show mercy to my foes. However, I always had a soft spot for you, Winston's. That's why I am giving you a chance to let your brother know the true face of the Guardians. Sabrina trembled hearing his cold tone as he continued. Your brother is being used by the Guardians. Now you have a chance to show him the true colors of the Guardians. I will tell him everything except the truth about you, Michael nodded, appreciating Sabrina's conviction to keep his secret safe. Will we meet any time sooner? When Michael started to descend into the air, she asked him. Although they were inside the void line, Sabrina wasn't surprised to see him using arch energy. At this point, nothing about him could surprise her. Michael, however, did not give her an answer but just smiled. The next moment, he turned himself into a lightning bolt and disappeared from the island, leaving Sabrina behind. She started at the trail of golden light he left behind until he completely disappeared from her sight. Only then did she take a deep breath and tear the scroll, activating it. After finally leaving the island, Michael flew towards Jisel. He could teleport to reach Jisel instantly, but Michael chose to fly because he wanted to calm his mind and soul. Flying alone always enabled him to think clearly. Although Sabrina learned his secret, he couldn't get himself to kill her. While flying towards Jisel, Michael flicked his wrist as a vial of blood appeared in his hand. The vial contained Sabrina's blood. His hand literally shivered to hold the vial. If his instincts were proven correct, it would shake him to the core and change his world upside down. With everything in his mind, Michael continued to fly toward Jisel. Almost after 4 hours, when the sun reached the center of the sky, Michael finally saw the kingdom of Jisel on the horizon. My lord! He was about to use the runic teleportation to reach Caius' mansion when he heard Azazel's voice in his head. Azazel! Michael stopped in his pace by Azazel's voice. My lord, you should come to the dark forest as soon as possible. What happened? Michael creased his brows, turning around. Please teleport here, my lord. The latest are on a website. Before Michael could question him more, the connection got interrupted. Realizing something was wrong, Michael immediately activated the runic teleportation to reach the dark forest. Back in the dark forest, Azazel was standing in Michael's room alone. He gawked around, waiting for Michael to appear. Finally, when Michael appeared, he heaved a sigh of relief. On the other hand, Michael was in his complete Lucifer form to go all out in a battle. However, unlike he expected, there were no enemies in his room except Azazel. It took Michael a second to realize what had just happened. But it was too late as he got hit by something soft and fluffy in a blink of an eye. Surprise Mickey! Michael was on the ground, and Gaia was on top of him with the brightest smile on her face. Gaia! Michael was startled by Gaia's surprise appearance. She ripped off his mask and showered him with kisses. In return, Michael hugged her and stood up, holding her tight. Since Azazel had done his job by bringing Michael to the dark forest, he quickly left the room, leaving Michael and Gaia alone. Gaia just pushed him to the bed and locked her lip with his like a hungry kitten. I missed you so much. After parting her lips from his, she panted and said. I missed you too. The smile on Gaia's face instantly vanished as she creased her brows. Something happened? With a single look at his face, Gaia knew something was bothering him. Tell me what happened. Michael knew there was no point in changing the subject or lying to her. Thus, he took a deep breath and began narrating everything that had happened since he met Sabrina on the island. Surprisingly, after listening to Michael, Gaia gently patted him on the back. It's okay. You did the right thing. You would have been no different than the fucking Guardians if you had killed her. She is a Winston. She won't break her word. Michael somewhat felt calmed and reassured after hearing Gaia's words. Besides, I am here. You don't have to face the shit alone anymore. Let's kick things up, Michael smiled as she pecked him on the cheek. You're not supposed to get out of Ukilun till next week. So how did you come here? Michael asked. Just got an early vacation thanks to Headmistress Kayla. Eladir will be here by tomorrow. Michael and Gaia just lay on the door, staring at the ceiling. Visit. For a better user experience. Dude, you had done some sick shit without me, Gaia sighed as she sighed in disappointment. It's good that you placed a spider in her body and gave her the blood tonic. If she tries to fuck with us, we can fuck her back by making her explode. The healing potion Michael made Sabrina drink was mixed with the blood tonic in case Sabrina tried to reveal his secret to Noah or anyone else. Unlike the spiders Tanulia found in her warship, the new ones Michael placed were enhanced by Eladir's runes and were undetectable. So if Sabrina tried to betray him, Michael could kill her with a snap of his fingers. Besides, Michael could mess with Noah by blackmailing him if the push comes to shove. Although Michael didn't like to use Sabrina as a pawn in a game between him and Noah, there was no harm in having many backup plans. So, what's our next move? Now that I am here, we can cross off some of the things on your to-do list. Giving Azazel his physical body, Michael rose from the bed while ordering the system to take out the body pieces and merge them. Azazel, Gaia called out the butler when she saw the body of a half-elf appear in the room. Gaia approached the body to run her fingers across the half-elf Boda's face. Well, I always imagined Azazel getting some gray-haired human body since he looks like that now. My lady, as Gaia was checking out the body, Azazel appeared in the room. So you were with her to prank me, huh? Azazel looked slightly embarrassed and apologetic with a sly smile. It's okay. I brought you a gift. Michael gestured at the body as a glimmer of joy and surprise emerged in Azazel's eyes. He slowly floated towards the body. My lord. Do you like it? Yes, my lord. This body, the energy, it's overwhelming. Azazel stammered. Unlike Michael and Gaia, his demon origin enabled Azazel to sense the overwhelming energy radiating from the body. Now when you are ready, just get inside the body, Michael said and waited for Azazel to enter the body. After he entered, Michael summoned the system. System, take the badass points and merge Azazel's soul with the body, as you wish, host. The system said and took 50,000 badass points, as it mentioned to Michael when he was in Everlight. After the system took the required badass points, a golden light shot out from Michael to the half-elf's body. The light soon enveloped the body, radiating an otherworldly whistling sound. We can now take him anywhere with us, right? Visit. For a better user experience, yes. That's the plan. Michi nodded, waiting for the golden light to disappear from the room. The light almost lingered around the body for another 15 minutes. Then after the light gradually faded away, Michael and Gaia saw Azazel slowly opening his eyes, revealing crimson-red eyes. As soon as Azazel opened his eyes, the system brought Azazel's status window before Michael's eyes. Subordinate, Azazel Sebastian Cultivation Level, Soul Refining Stage Level 3 Race. Demon, Half-Elf Body, Status. Healthy Trait. Butler, Unique, Loyalty towards the host. 100% Skills. Phantom Possession Bind Area Teleportation Bloodthirsty Imitator Phantom 4 Mind Dominator. Phantom Possession is the ability of Azazel to possess a weak-willed enemy for a moment. Azazel can bend the space around it to teleport near the host and the bound area. Azazel can absorb blood essence to temporarily grow stronger. Azazel can imitate the host's spells and skills. The imitated skills and spells will not be as powerful as the host's arsenal. Azazel can choose to hide from the naked eyes. Only the host and a chosen subordinate could see Azazel when he's using the phantom form. Azazel's voice could dominate weak-willed enemies' bodies. Michael noticed the change in Azazel's skills. The phantom touch had transformed into the phantom possession. It made sense to Michael as Azazel now had a physical form. Finally, I can serve my lord and my lady to the fullest of my abilities. Azazel immediately dropped to his knees and placed his hand on his chest. The fun is just getting started, Sebastian, Gaia devilishly grinned. Visit. For the best known experience. After giving Azazel a physical body, Michael sent Azazel out for a moment. "So I can see you've reached soul refining stage level 2, Michael commented on her cultivation level. Thanks to the resources Mazeroth gave all their staff, Gaia was able to reach the soul refining stage pretty quickly. Besides, she still had the 40% cultivation speed boost from the system. It's still not enough. I have to get stronger." "What cultivation stage are you at?" "You are looking at a fusion stage cultivator, my dear snake," Michael smirked. Gaia was completely startled by his words. She thought he could not surprise her anymore, but she was proven wrong at that moment. To be honest, she was speechless after hearing him. Thus, for a few moments, she just stared at him without blinking an eye. "What the fuck is wrong with you? It's not fair," she stomped the ground, snarling. "Every time I think I'm getting close to you, you just jump from one stage to another like crossing a puddle." Michael quickly wrapped his hand around her shoulder and pecked her on the cheek. "Don't be angry, my dear Queenie. I'll make you just as strong as I am. You better. I can't be weaker than any of our subordinates. Let's go to that fucking aqua auction and buy something that could make me stronger, and we will go to the treacherous ocean and clean the place out." Gaia's eyes went wide, but soon a grin emerged on her face. "That sounds like a fucking dangerous yet my kind of plan." Gaia playfully bit his cheek. "The last time I went there I was pretty weak. Now I will see who's gonna stop us. But before that, we have to go to the auction and knock out a few other things." "Like what?" "Like meeting Dalar and seeing the state of our undead army," Michael answered. "Let's go." Michael then willed the system to activate the runic teleportation. In a blink of an eye, they appeared in the dimly lit halls of the crypt, where Jonah and Dalar were busy dissecting an undead on an oak table. "Visit. For a better user experience. What the fuck are you two doing?" Gaia's voice echoed through the empty hall, startling Dalar and Jonah. The previously clean, shiny hall now looked bloody and dirty as Michael felt like he had entered a slaughterhouse. The place was a horror house, and Michael did not like it. "My lord, my lady." Jonah and Dalar shivered, looking at the anger within the Dark Queen's tone. Her crimson-red eyes glistened behind the skull mask. "Is this how you two keep our base?" She clenched her fist. Luckily for Dalar and Jonah, Michael grabbed her hands before she blasted them away with a spell. The two of HRM quickly dropped to their knees. Unfortunately, due to their unwavering focus on unveiling the mystery behind the undead, they failed to notice the miserable state of the crypt. While Gaia was murderously looking at the two of them, Jonah looked around to see the golden walls of the crypt stained with blood and gore. The air reeked of a nauseating rotten smell. "Well, despite the obvious sad state of the crypt, what have you two found?" Michael sighed inside and asked them. "You two better have some fucking results." Gaia was on the verge of breaking their arms for making the crypt a slaughterhouse. Sensing the anger in her tone, Dalar quickly opened his mouth, fearing that even a second of silence could result in their demise. "We may have found a way to make the undead army stronger, my lady." As soon as Gaia heard the words, her anger vanished into thin air. "All thanks to this, my lord." With a flick of his wrist, Dalar took out a Stormville mountain crystal. The pink crystal dimly glowed from within on Dalar's palm. Before Michael departed, he handed over a few prototypes that could enable his subordinates in the southern continent to use arch energy. These prototypes were obviously powered by the arch energy crystals. Dalar was one of the subordinates who received the device. At that time, when Michael built the device, he was only a 4-star inventor. But now, he could perfect the device thanks to his 5-star inventor level. "The crystal mixed with human blood activates the energy veins in their bodies again, my lord." Michael was truly surprised. If what Dalar said was correct, he could power up his entire undead army. The reason why the undead couldn't use arch energy or cultivate was that they lacked a functioning brain and the decayed energy veins in their bodies. The alpha undead kinda replaced the undead's brain because the alphas functioned as the brains by controlling them. Therefore, if Dalar could revive the energy veins in their bodies, Michael could theoretically make the undead cultivate. The latest episodes are on Undertale website. But something told Michael, it wouldn't be as easy as Dalar made it sound. Human blood? How much human blood are we talking about? And can you permanently revive their energy veins? If we get the blood of a powerful being, I have confidence we can permanently revive their energy veins, my lord. Unexpectedly, Dalar's confident tone surprised Michael. We still need more crystals and blood to determine how much blood we need, my lord. Jonah opened his mouth. Despite the fact Jonah was actually asking for human blood, He felt excited rather than disgusted or nauseated. "We can give you blood and crystals. But I expect solid results," Gaia exclaimed. "Also, I want the two of you to build a sick house for your slaughterings outside. We are on a huge island, for God's sake. Use your brains, or I will carve it out of you." "She is right. Build something for yourself out there." "I have big plans for this place," Michael nodded. "How many undead do we have right now?" 2,500, my lord. The angels harvested all the powerful netherils and hunted down the rest. Michi clenched his fist. "Does that mean you can't summon netherils anymore?" Gaia asked as Dalar hesitantly nodded. "Shit," Gaia cussed and looked at Michael to know his thoughts on the matter. "It's just a minor setback. We can still make more undead." Gaia did not need Michael to explain further as she had already grasped his plans. "We don't need any more undead now. You two focus on building yourselves a workshop outside and find a way to make my army cultivate." After giving Dalar and Jonah their orders, Michael did not linger around in the crypt anymore. Instead, he teleported back to the dark forest and flew towards Bradford. Visit. For a better user experience ever since Ghost separated Bradford from Bredia and declared the barony as a kingdom, Bradford had gone through countless struggles. However, after Ghost's visit to Bredia, things took a turn for the better. Kingdom Bredia had released all the prisoners and stopped harassing the travelers and merchants. Although their king Ghost was not there with them to govern the kingdom, the elders and the Sunrise sect ruled the kingdom in his stead. As a result, Bradford finally began to thrive under the leadership of sect leader Claire and the talented elders who managed Bradford's various ministries. When Michael and Gaia saw Rivertown appear on the horizon, they stopped flying to bask in the sight's beauty. The setting sun painted the kingdom with its dimming golden light. Under its warm light, the farmlands surrounding the town glimmered like a jade stone blanket. The river crisscrossed throughout the town contained countless fishing boats and merchant ships. Even though the dawn was approaching, the river town didn't stop buzzing with crowds and carriages. Most of the carriages followed the main paved path and all shared a common destination: the Hades. The green lush mountain chain surrounding the town competed with the farmlands and the river to see who added extra charm to the town. Even from a distance, Michael could now see the buildings of the sect in the mountains, especially the majestic manor of sect leader Claire. Before stopping at Hades, Michael decided to stop by the sect so he could meet Olivia and reassure her that nothing had happened to him. Besides, it was time Gaia had returned to the sect. "So you told me Ricky and Olivia are in love. What do we gonna do about it?" asked Gaia while slowly flying towards the sect. "I think I should talk to Reginald about his daughter's future. Ricky is a good guy, and if Olivia married him, she'd always be close to us. That is advantageous to us. After all, we need Olivia to be our head of the majestic chain." Speaking of the majestic chain, don't you think it's better if we open several branches across the continent? Now that most of the alchemists are dead and rotten, your market value would have gone through the roof. We can press this opportunity and make millions. You speak my mind, Gaia. The only problem is, can you refine pills and potions for all the branches? Gaia questioned Michael. Not that she doubted his ability, but rather, she doubted he would have enough time to sit around and refine pills and potions instead of focusing on dismantling their enemies. "I already have a plan in mind, but fortunately, Michael had a solution for the alchemy problem. Since Michael upgraded the inventor level to 5-star, it was only a matter of time before he built a contraption that could brew pills and potions automatically without his intervention. After building it, Michael just had to teach Olivia how to operate the contraption, and it could pump out 100 pills and potions a day. However, he must find a suitable place to build such a contraption if he doesn't want rogue cultivators or powerful families to rob him blind. "Does it involve Olivia?" asked Gaia. "Yes. And also our allies. I think it's time we paid a visit to the Holy Church," Michi grinned. "Visit? For a better user experience, Holy Church? Why?" Gaia was confused as she couldn't guess why he suddenly wanted to visit the Holy Church. As far as she was concerned, they had to stay as far as possible from the Holy Church. "Hitting two birds with one stone, Gaia," Michael said, smiling, and sped up towards the sect. "Look. Hey look. It's Sister Elia. Brother Ghost." As soon as the disciples saw Michael and Gaia in the sky, the disciples roaming around the sect began to cause turmoil. Michael waved at them for a few moments before flying directly into Claire's manor. Right then, Claire was meeting with a few elders from the other sects and discussing merging the sects with the Sunrise sect. "You don't have to worry about independence, Elder Marcy. We will provide everything you need and let you govern yourself, except our elders will offer you guidance to make the sect greater. Claire sat with one leg atop another. By sitting like this, she looked extremely dominant. Coupled with her core strengthening stage level 8 cultivation, the aura she radiated made the elders absolutely submissive. If you are in agreement with our terms, visit Broa Driver and meet Elder Ella there. She will guide you through the process, Claire said. It will be a pleasure to be a part of the Sunrise Sect. Sect leader, a brown-haired man, stood up from his seat, bowed towards Claire, and shook her hand with absolute respect in his eyes. Instead of entering the hall to meet Claire, Michael and Gaia waited in the hallway, looking at Claire. The elders finally winded up the discussion a few minutes later and stood up to leave. Only then did they notice Michael and Gaia. When they saw the couple, the elders were startled. They might haven't recognized Gaia, but they recognized Michael almost instantly. Young Master Ghost. No, Your Majesty Ghost. Relax, ladies and gentlemen. Michael raised his hand with a calm smile as Claire's eyes went wide. Elia. The sect leader almost dashed at Gaia, ignoring the elders. Fortunately, she controlled the urge to hug Gaia for a few moments. After exchanging a few pleasantries with the elders, Michael respectfully sent the elders away. How is it going, Claire? Gaia gently punched Claire in the shoulder, only to get hugged and squeezed by the blonde. It's so nice to see. Where were you all this time? Michael calmly rested his butt on the comfy sofa and waited for the maid to stop cowering in the corner and come to him. You know, having some alone time. Cultivating, adventuring and murdering humans. Huh? Just kidding. Except for the last part, Gaia chuckled, making Claire frown. Kidding again. The latest studies are on an website. Gaia patted Claire on the back and sat on the sofa with her. Finally, the young maid who was cowering in the corner decided to approach them. 3 avocado juice, Claire ordered. Yes. Yes, sect leader Claire, the young girl shivered, stuttering in fear. Who is she? It's a new rule of the sect. All the young people have to do some part-time jobs as a part of their studies. We believe it helped them sympathize with the commoners more, Claire explained. Ghost! Out of the blood, Olivia dashed into the manor with a pale face full of sweat beads. Told you it'll be fine. Claire was confused as Olivia dragged herself towards Michael and sat beside him. Soon, Ricky and Daniel entered the room. By the fear in Ricky's eyes, Michael could say that Olivia shared what happened on the ship with Ricky. As a result, he had to go through what happened during the alchemy competition from the beginning to the end when he got kidnapped by the pirates. Of course, Michael told them not to ask anything about what happened after the pirates kidnapped him. He had to wait to hear Sabrina's story before spreading another one. After everything was said and done about the alchemy competition, Gaia finally turned her gaze toward Olivia and Ricky. Olivia quickly realized the meaning of Gaia's sharp gaze while sitting beside Michael. Ricky, on the other hand, stood behind a sofa facing Claire and Michael with Daniel. So when were you two planning to tell us? Especially you, Ricky, Gaia said, raising her one brow in the shape of a sword. It's what? Cat got your tongue? Yet again, Claire was confused as she had no idea what was happening. She was too busy with the sect and Bradford business to notice the love tension between Olivia and Ricky. However, Daniel knew about their relationship, but he didn't get a chance to tell Ghost. Still, Daniel always advised Ricky to come clean with Ghost. These two are in love, Gaia broke the news to Claire. What? Claire couldn't help raising her voice in shock. It's okay, Ricky. You guys don't have to be scared. You did nothing wrong. I already dealt with Noah. What do you mean dealt with Noah? Claire's heart skipped a beat, thinking Ghost had killed Noah. Why don't you explain, Olivia? Michael looked at Olivia, wordlessly telling her to tell everything related to her marriage agreement with Noah. It took Olivia another 10 minutes to bring Claire up to speed. So much had happened, yet I knew nothing. I have to get some free time. Claire massaged her temples. But suddenly, Claire opened her eyes so wide Michael could see the sparkles in her eyes. Visit. For a better user experience, why don't we have a girls' night in Hades? After we deal with Lord Reginald. Speaking of Lord Reginald. Ricky, send a messenger to Lord Reginald and ask him I want to meet him tomorrow morning. Really? Ricky sounded relieved and almost excited. Yes, really. Now go. After Ricky, Daniel and Olivia left the hall, Michael decided to talk to Claire about the state of Bradford and his future position in the sect. Sect leader Claire. I think it's time I graduate from the Sunrise sect and let the Sunrise sect outshine me. Claire was surprised for a moment, but soon she just sighed. I understand you. I mean, you must be stronger than your sect leader. Way stronger, Gaia exclaimed. So what's the plan? Asked Claire. Between us, I'll always be the guardian of the sect. But to the outside world, I graduated from the sect. I will be nothing more than an old student. Claire listened to Michael's plan without uttering a word as he continued. As for the matter of Bradford, I'd prefer if you merge the kingdom with a sect. It was not Michael's idea to acquire the kingdom into the sect but Gaia's. No sect had ever acquired a kingdom. Hence, if the Sunrise sect took over Bradford, it'd be the first time in history. Think about it, Claire. After taking over the kingdom, all the citizens of Bradford would be our disciples. You will have an army to defend the sect in the future against your foes. Let's be real. Countless people might be conspiring to bring us down as we speak. So we need an army, Gaia exclaimed. Besides, it'd be less complicated to rule Bradford as the Sunrise sect rather than a separate place. We got your back, Claire, as always. Gaia wrapped her hand around Claire and reassured her. Take your time, sect leader Claire. I know it's a big decision. But trust me, it's better this way. Well, I have to talk to the elders, but are you sure you want to do this? By doing this, you're basically throwing away being the king. Michael, on the other hand, just shrugged. I don't like being the king anyway. It's not my style. Plus, being called your majesty feels wrong and weird. Really? That's your reason? Claire sighed. You basically went to war with King Bredia and killed Princess Catherine. Both of them were being such a bitch at that time. Just take your time and let us know your decision, sect leader Claire. Visit. For a better _user experience, please. Call me Claire from now on. Just like your majesty ghost, sect leader Claire feels wrong and weird. Claire giggled as Michael stood up to leave the manor. Fair, Michael nodded. And Gaia girls' night. Do not miss it. I still haven't forgotten you didn't throw a gala for getting engaged. The last time we tried to do that, a bunch of morons ambushed us and blew Hades to hell. So you sure you still want a gala? I am planning this time, and no offense, ghost, I'll be open for only girls, Claire said to Michael. Whatever you do it before the end of next week. I am planning to go to our aqua auction? Claire asked. Yeah. I heard I can get some cool stuff there. Before traveling to Ar, however, Michael planned to deal with the pirates in the southern continent and the status of Gisel in the ongoing war between Pre-Rid and Myril. The last time Michael heard, General Quintus was viciously attacking Pre-Rid and slowly marching towards Pre-Rid's capital. He assigned Kane to deal with the problem. And it was time to check on Vidora. After leaving Claire's manor, Michael and Gaia went to see their herbal garden. The herbal garden was concealed with lush green veins and giant trees. If one looked at the mountain from the distance, they wouldn't see the glass dome covering the herbal garden but the lush green mountain. As they walked towards the herbal garden, breathing in the aromatic air, they felt calm and soothed to their soul. The sound of birds chirping and crickets chittering in the herbal garden was almost music to their ears. It feels like yesterday I planted my first herb seed. 1,000 years, blue putna flower, Michael said to Gaia. Time does fly fast, Gaia nodded. After walking food for a few more minutes, they reached the colossal glass dome surrounding the herbal garden. At that moment, the herbal garden was almost half the size of a football stadium. But the crowded herbs and vegetation made the garden somewhat look smaller. As soon as they entered the garden, a few youngsters welcomed them with a bow. How is the harvesting going? Michael asked the blonde-haired youngster. Since he was one of the senior disciples in the sect, he didn't act like the others when he saw Michael. Pretty great, brother ghost. We just brought some compost from Royal Land and I heard Elder Reiner has ordered some rare herbs from the Phoenix auction house. Cool. Continue your work. I just come here to pick some herbs. Michael and Gaia walked away from the youngsters, leaving them to their work. I still can't believe that tiny human is in seclusion. Do you think she is some kind of genius? Gaia asked while Michael was plucking some red orchids with care. If she continues to cultivate at this rate, she would be considered as one. After all, Cindy consumed pills and potions worth millions. That could make even the mediocre cultivator a genius. Yet here you are plucking orchids to make her another potion, Gaia chuckled. It will help her reach the core formation stage quicker. I miss having her around. What about me? Do you miss having me around? Gaia asked in a seductive tone and moved closer to him. Visit. For a better _user experience. Would you believe me if I said no? Those were the last words that escaped Michael's mouth before Gaia locked her lips with his. The next day, Michael woke up early and went straight to Hades before sunrise. He had a whole of things planned ahead and decided to start the day with some strongly brewed coffee. After the ambush, Michael hired Lord Malin to provide 24/7 security to Raylene, Hades, and the Majestic. Hence, when Michael and Gaia arrived at Hades, they were greeted by 2 core-strengthening stage guards. Lord Ghost, Lady Elia. The 2 guards flanking the door bowed their heads as Michael and Gaia entered the Hades. The newly renovated Hades looked glamorous and fancier than before. Although she hated Fover, the dwarf, she couldn't help admiring his skills. Basically, it felt like she had entered another world. God, I missed the smell of this place. Gaia took a long whiff of the air and looked around the restaurant for a few moments before walking towards the table designated for them. Oh my God, as they sat down, Gloria, who walked out from the back door, almost jumped and gasped in shock. Master Ghost, Miss Elia. Michael was surprised too, as he didn't expect Gloria to be here this early. You're early, Gaia exclaimed. I always come early to see everything's in perfect condition, Miss Elia. It's not much but always helps to keep the flow running smoothly. Michael appreciated Gloria's hard work. There was a reason why Michael paid a high wager to Gloria. I heard you're planning to open up another branch in Royal Land. Come on, take a seat. Gaia gestured at Gloria to take the seat before them. At first, Gloria felt hesitant even to look them in the eyes. But after spending time with Ghost and Elia, she had grown to respect them more rather than fear them. So instead of wasting their time being reluctant, Gloria took the seat. Tell me about this place, Gaia asked. Well, it's located in the Noble District, close to the garrison. Nice safe spot, big 3-story building and newly built. Sounds great. Any problem buying it? The owner of the building is King Kramer's cousin. He is playing a little hardball. Gaia creased her brows because she sensed a reluctance in Gloria's voice as though she was hiding something. Gloria, after hearing the deep tone, Gloria just sighed. It's just that guy's look, Miss Elia. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right the way he looks at Lady Raylene. I don't think he is asking for coins. Arg, I hate this, Michael scratched the back of his head. The last thing Michael wanted was to make an enemy out of King Kramer. Unlike King Breedia, King Kramer was an influential figure and the king of the most powerful kingdom in Elon. The latest episodes are on Undersell website. Did you look for another place? Asked Gaia, hiding the anger from showing on her face. Yes, but they are not as good as this. That's why we've been thinking of opening a branch somewhere else. That's a good idea. It's troublesome to deal with these spoiled young masters, Gaia sighed. Although Gloria was slightly surprised, she felt relieved. As you wish, Miss Elia. While talking, Michael saw Raylene walking through the door and was surprised to see Ghost and Elia. Here she is, my favorite cook in the whole world. Miss Elia, Raylene dashed at Gaia and hugged her tightly. Core formation level 7. Michael admired Raylene's cultivation level. It was apparent to him that despite her busy schedule, Raylene was spending time cultivating as he instructed her. It's so nice to see you. Where have you been? Gaia made Raylene sit beside her and ruffled Raylene's golden hair. You are glowing, Gaia commented on Raylene's silky smooth, glowy skin, making Raylene blush. How about we all have a freshly brewed coffee and talk? Michael felt bad to interrupt their reunion, but he wanted that coffee to kick his brain to plan his next moves. Give me 10 minutes and I'll bring coffee with Miss Elia's favorite cookies. You are such a treasure. Gaia pinched Raylene's cheek to the point it turned red as a ripe tomato. You can go ahead with your work, Gloria. Michael sent away Gloria so he could start planning with Gaia. You are not going to kill him, huh? Michael raised his brows, showing his disbelief. Of course. My word is my bond. Michael chuckled, seeing her placing her 3 fingers on the chest. But that doesn't mean he won't die. Aria's in Bradford, right? Michael nodded. When Michael met Aria last time, he ordered her to escort her brothers to Bradford and contact Sadie to get the twins into the military. Thanks to Sadie, Titus and Optimus had become the soldiers of Bradford's army and waiting for the Dark Lord's further instructions. It's time she does a little reconnaissance in Royal Land. What are you planning? Michael asked curiously. Visit. For a better user experience, a pervert fucker like him can't live without gala and parties. I bet he's having a party this weekend. So? So we crash the party, Gaia shrugged. We can't. He dies, and we might become suspects. Not if he goes nuts and kills himself, Gata grinned devilishly as Michael understood her plan. If someone killed that young master, the guardians or the king's guards might make the connection to Michael. However, no one would bat an eye if he went nuts and killed himself, as Gaia said. Fortunately, Michael happened to know how to make him go crazy. Where is Eladir? He should have gotten out by now. Gaia watched the rising sun through the window and wondered. While we are waiting for him, tell me where I get these things. Michael quickly scribbled a list of things on parchment and slid it towards Gaia. Black ivory, clean-cut sapphires, meridian ore, Ritzbury oil. Gaia read through the list of items and looked confused after reaching the list's end. What the heck are you planning to do with all these items? You can't get these items in a common auction house. Most of these items are pretty rare. I know someone who could get these items, but I don't think you'll like him. Who? Michael asked. Lord fricking Julius of Phoenix Island. Cool, however, Michael surprised Gaia with his calm tone. Well, send Daniel to meet Julius on my behalf. Wow, I thought you will be mad or what, throw a tantrum. Look, I am a fusion stage cultivator now. Holding a grudge against a puny core formation or core strengthening man is beneath me. Honestly, I don't think Julius is holding what I did against him either. Let's just send Daniel and get these items from him. When did you become such a saint? Gaia couldn't help rolling her eyes as she kinda expected Ghost to go to Phoenix Island and decimate everyone in his path, or at least kick Julius' butt. After all, Lord Julius tried to kill Ghost when he killed the group of youngsters who tried to kill Gaia. Yet he proved her wrong by forgiving Julius. But I get to kill him if he still acts like a bitch. Visit. For the best known experience, fair enough. Unlike before, Michael did not have to constrain himself from making enemies. On the contrary, it was the people of Elon who shouldn't make an enemy out of Michael. As a fusion stage cultivator, Michael had the power to wipe out many noble families and sects from the face of the world. At this point in time, only peak-level fusion stage or cultivators above them could stop Michael. As they were talking, another figure entered through the door, and this time, it was Eladir. He strolled toward Michael and Gaia like he owns the place with his head held high. Look who decided to show up. Since they were in Hades, instead of bowing, Eladir just nodded and took the seat before them. Where is Nightmare? As soon as Eladir settled down, Michaela asked him about Nightmare. The moment we got out, he went to meet you in the sect. I bet he is with Claire right now, Gaia chuckled, imagining Nightmare in a bathtub full of bubbles. Eladir. Michael nodded at Eladir as the latter quickly drew a rune on the table. The dark red rune resembling a hawk glistened for a moment before vanishing into thin air. Now no one will be able to hear us. Good. So now he is here, tell us what's our next move is? Gaia asked Michael. To be honest, Gaia felt overwhelmed by the problems in front of them. Until now, their enemies had the advantage of being stronger than them. That had changed now. Therefore, Gaia wanted to tackle the problems head-on. First things first, we need to finish what we started. We are going to Gisel and equip Big Bertha with mortar. Man, I need to see this mortar you two constantly nag about in action. Has they finished forging it, my lord? Maxine will meet us at Corey's Island with the mortar. After we finish that, I am planning to visit Aiden. We can't delay making the southern continent our strong base anymore. On one hand, we have the mysterious clan of vampires who seem to be far more powerful than we imagined. On the other hand, we have Skyhall and Guardians to deal with. So I think we will all agree when I say we turn the tables to our favor and conquer the southern continent once and for all. Gaia bobbed her head up and down excitedly. But before we do that, we have an ally to make. Michael paused for a moment. The Holy Church. I am going to make a huge sum of $5 million donation in my name against the Chech's war against the Dark Lord. Ooh, I get it. After deeply thinking for a few moments, Gaia understood Michael's plan. Don't tell me you don't get him. You are thousands of years old. Just use your old brain and figure it out. Why does Ghost need the Holy Church as his ally? The latest episodes are on Undertale website. After seeing the amused look on Michael's face, Eladir really started to pick his brain to understand his plan. As far as Eladir heard from Michael, the Holy Church was hunting the Dark Lord in full force. Hence, he couldn't help wondering why Michael needed to meet the powerful organization that hunts him. After planning his next moves, Michael waited for Reginald to arrive at Hades with Gaia. As time flew, more and more nobles entered the Hades, and the restaurant began to get busy. Not even an hour past opening the restaurant, Yet all the tables got filled with nobles. A few nobles looked surprised to see Michael, but they didn't bother Michael. Finally, after the sun ultimately rose out of the horizon, Reginald entered the Hades with Olivia and Ricky. Lord Reginald, Michael stood up to firmly shake Reginald's hand. Gaia also shook his hand before everyone settled into their places. We will have 3 specials please, Michael ordered the food on behalf of Reginald. Master Ghost, I heard about what happened in the alchemy competition. Scary business. Thank you so much for taking care of her. Reginald showed his gratitude to Michael with a nod. Lord Reginald, I asked you here to talk about Olivia. Normally, I wouldn't poke my head into others' business. But she is not an outsider. She is my student, and as a teacher, I can't ignore her well-being. Hear him out. Gaia cut Reginald short when he was about to interject Michael. I don't like to beat around the bush. These 2 are in love, Michael pointed at Olivia and Ricky, and I want you to marry them. If you are hesitating because he is not noble and not strong enough, this will reassure you. Reginald noticed Michael taking a parchment from his space ring and writing something on it. This contains my word to you. In 2 years, Ricky will reach the soul refining stage. In 2 months, he will be appointed as one of the elders of the Sunrise sect and no longer be just a henchman. Everyone except Gaia was startled. Teacher. Olivia stuttered as Michael slid the parchment towards Reginald. He took it in his hand and glanced at Michael's words. I think we will both agree that at the soul refining stage, Ricky can protect Olivia without anyone's help, Michael calmly said. And as an elder of the Sunrise sect, he will be influential and have a status higher than many nobles in Elon, Gaia exclaimed after Michael. Reginald was simply speechless while Ricky felt like he was about to faint. You have to think of your daughter, Lord Reginald. She asked for your permission because she loves and respects you. It's time you return the same gesture to her. If she marries another guy, she will just be a wife. But Ricky will treat her like a queen. He is a nice guy. Ricky's eyes watered, hearing Ghost vouch for him. On the other hand, Reginald just stared at Ricky and Olivia before sighing. Do you really think he can reach the soul refining stage within 2 years? The latest episodes are on Undertale website. I don't think. I know, you have my word. After getting assurance from Michael, he couldn't reject Ricky anymore. Besides, Noah Winston had called off the marriage, so Reginald had no choice but to accept the deal from Ghost. And Ricky, while Reginald was pondering, Gaia turned her gaze towards Ricky. She is the only girl in your life. The only tears I want to see in the green eyes are happy tears. Otherwise, I'll break your bones, make a soup, and feed it to you. Gaia threatened Ricky, and by the coldness of the tone, Reginald could tell she wasn't kidding. What's your answer, Lord Reginald? Reginald looked at Ricky and Olivia yet again and heaved a long breath of sigh. I have no objection to the marriage between them. We shall marry them after he reaches the soul refining stage. Not that Reginald wanted Ricky to fail, but he truly wanted someone powerful to protect his daughter. That was the main reason why Reginald rejected Ricky. However, now that Ghost reassured him, he truly believed Ricky could reach the soul refining stage. As far as Reginald was concerned, Ghost could do anything if he set his mind to it. As soon as Reginald agreed, Olivia lunged at her father and hugged him tightly. Meanwhile, Ricky almost grabbed Michael's feet, but Michael quickly stopped him with a gust of wind. You and Daniel find some associates for you. From tomorrow, the 2 of you will start cultivating like never before. Elia will give you a training regiment you must follow. Ricky bopped his head up and down. Although Michael could provide Daniel and Ricky with pills and potions, without hard work and a strict training regiment, they wouldn't reach the soul refinement stage in a million years. Since Michael gave Reginald his word, he gave the responsibility of training them to Gaia. After sending the happy lovebirds away, Michael started to talk about the future of the Majestic. Lord Reginald, we have a unique opportunity in our hands. You know what that is, right? Reginald nodded. Almost 80% of the alchemists in Elon and Azair are wiped out. So we have a huge vacuum of alchemists. Don't you think it's time to hike the price up a bit? Asked Gaia. Definitely. Your pills and potions already have a huge demand. In fact, the demand is way higher than the products in our hands. I can get our team to assess the market and get a rough idea of how high we should raise the prices. That's good. But I am also thinking of expanding the Majestic Lord Reginald. Between you and me, I am planning to make Olivia the head of my Majestic chains. What do you think of Olivia getting a share in profits? Reginald became speechless. Even 10% in the profits would settle Olivia for life. In fact, she would surpass Reginald's net worth in a couple of years if Ghost did what he said. As a merchant, he could tell how much of a golden opportunity this was. Visit. For the best-known experience, it'd be wonderful, Master Ghost. I thought so too. Can you do me a favor, Lord Reginald? Of course, Master Ghost. Reginald was too excited as he had already started to imagine Olivia as the head of Ghost's majestic chain. I need good places to open up branches. Can you get your team to find me some great places and their prices? Consider it done. I'll have the list brought to you in a few days. Reginald already had a few places in mind. Thus, finding Ghost a few suitable places wouldn't be difficult. Besides, Reginald would provide his full help to Ghost to build a majestic chain so Olivia could have a bright future and become a renowned leader instead of being an alchemy teacher in Aragoth. After everything was said and done, Reginald left Hades, leaving Ghost and Gaia behind. The duo did not linger around in Hades but went straight back to the sect. At the time they returned to the sect, Michael was hit by a heavy bag, and the bat was none other than Nightmare, who shrunk his size like a fully grown German shepherd. Nightmare, buddy. The dragon frantically licked Michael's face and showered him with kisses. It feels like too long. Nightmare hugged both Gaia and Michael in the mid-air. The trio slowly descended onto Claire's mansion and went inside to see Claire. Ghost! Claire welcomed Michael and Gaia with a grin. Take your seats. After they all settled down, Claire handed over 2 parchments to Michael. One is the document for merging the kingdom with the sect, and the other is your graduation confirmation. Since you will be busy getting ready to go to I took the liberty to draft them as fast as I could. Gaia took a short glance at the 2 documents before putting them inside her space ring. Also, I sent some disciples to find you 2 a good place to build your home. By the time you come back from we'll have a great place. Yes, but don't let anyone start building. I want to design every brick of our castle. Castle? Claire raised her brows in surprise. Of course, it will be a castle. Not just any castle. It will make the existing castles in Elon look like shabby houses. The latest oddies are on website. But don't you think it's overkill to build a castle for just the 2 of you? Claire turned her gaze to Michael, but he remained silent. It was Gaia's dream to design her own castle, and Michael had no plans to stop her from doing so. No matter how much coins it would cost him, he would let Gaia build them their own castle. Plus, Michael loved the idea of living in a castle without all the responsibilities of a king. Normally I'd disagree with her, but I love the idea of living in a castle. I have some cool ideas for my room, Nightmare excitedly laughed. Hearing the 2 of them, Claire could only sigh. There is no stopping you, is there? Nope. Gaia shook her head. Trust me, Claire. You're gonna be mind blown. We just need to find some best architects in So, have you thought of how you will get to You can't fly there as it would take months. If I were you, I'd look for a portal. Speaking of a portal, do you think the Holy Church would have one? Michael suddenly asked. I think so. The Holy Church has a branch in Royal Land, and I heard they have a portal there, Claire said. That's great. I have to meet His Holiness anyways. Thank you, Claire. Claire wanted to ask why Michael suddenly wanted to meet with His Holiness, but she refrained from sticking her nose into his business. Why don't you stay here and have that girls' night today? I'll go meet His Holiness, Michael said to Gaia as she quickly creased her brows. Why can't I come with you? Because you should spend some time with them. Michael gently squeezed her hand, looking into her eyes. It took Gaia a second to realize his true reason. You know what, that's a great idea. What about me? Asked Nightmare. Visit. For the best-known experience, I'll take you with me. Michael rubbed Nightmare's head and agreed to bring him to the church. It had been a couple of months since Michael visited Royal Land. By the time he flew to Royal Land atop Nightmare, the sun was on the top, scorching everyone under with its heat. Just like before, Michael had to land at the city gates and pay a toll to enter the city. Nightmare shrunk his size smaller to sit atop Michael's shoulder. After paying 20 gold coins, Michael entered the main capital of Royal Land. As usual, the city looked stripped out of a fantasy anime or a fantasy drama with all the people wearing fancy clothes and members of other races. Many young girls and young boys had their own exotic pets with them, but none had a dragon. A forest dragon was still a rare dragon breed, after all. Hence, Michael drew some glances at him while walking toward the town square. According to Claire, the road leading to the Holy Church branched out from the town square. Look at all those guards. While Michael was on his way to the town square, Nightmare pointed him to the fully armor-plated soldiers patrolling the streets. The soldiers wore pale blue armor with the crest of royal land on their chest. However, several groups adorned dark brown armor instead of blue. Michael did not recognize them. Who are they? The Holy Church soldiers, who were called Holy Guards, would be in shining white armor. At the same time, the Guardians always wore golden armor or appeared without any armor but just their crest. He hadn't seen any group of guards in dark brown armor. Besides, they were extremely strong. Each guard wearing the muddy brown armor was at the core strengthening stage. Because of the helmet, Michael couldn't see their faces or identify their race. Ignoring the patrolling soldiers, Michael continued to walk toward the town square. Is that Ghost? Yes. It's him. Whoa, it's really him. He is better looking than I imagined. He does have a dragon for a pet. Cool. Several nobles who recognized Michi by his trademark black robes began to murmur among them. At this time, almost half of Elon knew Michael's face and the entire continent knew his name. If it wasn't for the no-fly inside the city gates rule, Michael could have easily detected the church and quickly reached the place. But since it wasn't the case, Michael had to ignore their gazes and walk. Aren't we going to visit King Kramer? Nightmare asked suddenly. Visit. For the best known experience, we will. But after we meet with His Holiness, Michael wanted to let everyone in Elon know he had reached the fusion stage. It would definitely bring him attention and respect from throughout the continent. He wouldn't have to pay to enter the city at that time, but the king would come in person to receive him. When he arrived at the buzzing town square, Michael was greeted by a man in white robes standing atop a stack of crates and shouting out loud. The vampires are walking among us. The Dark Lord is walking among us. The gods are walking among us. The man shouted as loud as he could. Instead of walking past him, Michael leaned on a brick wall and listened to him with a few others. These are testing times for mortals. We have deceivers leading us into chaos. The Guardians are conspiring against humanity. They allowed the vampires to massacre our brothers and sisters. We are not cattle to be slaughtered. Michael was amused by the man's words. Moreover, the man got quite a crowd listening to him. Usually, the people of Royal Land would ignore people like him, but now, they actually stood under the scorching sun to listen to the man. The hate against the Guardians had become stronger than ever. It was evident to Michael. As the sole orchestrator of the events that ruined Guardian Guild's reputation, Michael was proud and pleased. We have deviated from the Great One and Two. Now we are reaping what we sow. It is time to return to our roots, people. The Holy Church is our only way to redemption. The man looked at the sky, pausing his speech for a few moments. It's not too late. Surrender your souls to His Holiness as He is the savior of the mortal kind. So the Holy Church is going all out to increase their support, huh? Michael mumbled inside. Instead of continuing to listen to the man, Michael resumed his journey. Considering the people were too focused on the shouting man, they failed to notice Michael. As Michael walked out of the crowd, he saw a deserted lane flanked by yellow maple trees on each side. The yellow-leaved blanketed the pavement, making the path look like it was paved with gold. The wooden board had the words Holy Church engraved on it along with an arrow pointing down the path. Michael and Nightmare took the path in silence, listening to the ruffling leaves and chirping of birds. It was soothing to them. Everything was still and silent until Michael sensed a powerful being approaching him. He slowly looked upwards to see a golden-haired man adorned in radiant white armor descending from the sky. If the word knight had an embodiment, it would be the man before Michael. With the heavy armor clanking, the man landed in front of Michael. His golden eyes stared at Michael from top to bottom. A soul-refining stage cultivator. Michael sensed the man's cultivation stage and wondered why a warrior like him appeared here. Ghost, I presume, the golden-haired warrior spoke with his steel-like voice. The man's face was void of any friendliness. In fact, he stared at Michael coldly as though Michael had done something to him. The latest episodes are on Understand website. One and only. I am hoping to see His Holiness. However, after Michael uttered these words with full of respect, a glint of surprise emerged in the man's gold eyes. The reason? To get His Holiness' blessings and extend my support to the Holy Church against the vampires. Follow me, the man said nothing but these words before gesturing at Michael to follow him. The both of them took off from the ground, and as soon as Michael flew through the maple tree canopy, he noticed a Gothic-style palace in the distance surrounded by moat and alluring sunflower beds. Michael could see the countless arrays and runes around the palace thanks to his X-ray vision. As Michael flew closer and closer, he noticed the enormous statues of warriors decorated the bridge leading to the palace. This castle had clearly stood the test of time, and despite his age, the palace looked sturdy and pristine. "This way." The man descended to the ground, landing on the marble floor facing the giant golden door. As though the door had sensed them, it creaked open slowly to reveal the interior. When the door opened, Michael was welcomed by massive braziers hanging from each of the 6 travertine columns that lit up the lower levels of the throne hall and blanketed everything in a warm glow. The countless gems on the rounded ceiling danced in the flickering light, while statuettes and memorials looked down upon this opulent hall's marble floor. Broad, stained glass windows depicting ancient legends were concealed by veils colored the same ebony as the banners. The curtains have been adorned with jewels and fine patterns. An ebony rug split the entire hall in half, matching the thinner ones on either side of the hall, while burgee banners with golden fringes decorated the walls. Between each banner stood several tapers of various sizes. All but a few have been lit, illuminating the 2 giant statues of a man and a woman. Under these 2 statues were 2 striking thrones of iron sitting at the center of a small platform and adjoined by 5 similar, but smaller seats for visiting dignitaries. The thrones were covered in Byzantine carvings, and a lavish lantern was fixed on each of the slim ears. The comfortable pillows were radiant white ebony, and these too have been adorned with embellished quilting. Those seeking the wisdom of the holiness could do so on the plethora of extravagant and comfortable maple benches facing the center of the hall. Those of higher standing could instead take seats in the elegant balustrades overlooking the hall. Entering the hall, Michael noticed a few nobles praying to the 2 giant statues on their knees. Instead of following the man, Michael went to his knees and closed his eyes just like the nobles. The sudden gesture Michael surprised the man yet again. While pretending to pray to the giant statues, Michael scanned the hall. Suddenly, he sensed a body refining stage cultivator entering the hall surrounded by soul refining stage warriors. Michael slowly opened his eyes to see a man in his late 70s with pure white hair standing before the throne. The old man wore radiant white robes that sparkled in the light as he looked to be the embodiment of kindness. There was no doubt in Michael's mind. The old man was the holiness of the Holy Church in the royal land. "May the Great One and Two be with you always." His Holiness raised the golden staff in his hand as a warm wave of energy brushed past Michael. "His Holiness will now see you," the golden-haired man said to Michael. Michael stood up and slowly approached the older man on the throne with a nod. "Please take the seat, child." The old man gestured at Michael to sit in the chair beside the throne. "Your Holiness, please give us your blessing." Michael and Nightmare lowered their heads. "May the Great One and Two be with you always." His Holiness blessed Michael and Nightmare with a gentle smile. The latest episodes are on Undertale website. "It's a pleasure to see a gifted young man like you bow your heads towards the Holy Church," His Holiness softly spoke. "I may not be a model citizen, Your Holiness, but I always put my faith in the Great One and Two. They guide me, and after the recent events, my faith is stronger than ever before." Nightmare was truly surprised by the extent of Michael's acting skills. He had to learn about the Great One and Two from Gaia, yet he talked like a die-hard worshipper of the two gods. "The Great One and Two protect those who keep them in their hearts, child. Nothing can harm you as long as you have them in your heart. Now feel free to speak your mind, child. This is a safe zone. I want to support the Holy Church, Your Holiness. I don't trust the Guardians, and I firmly believe only the Holy Church can put a stop to all this madness." His Holiness just gently smiled hearing Michael's words. "It is not madness but consequences of our sins, my child. We have lost our ways. Temporary pleasures and false gods have blinded everyone's faith. That's why I want to do my part, offering what I can to the Holy Church, Your Holiness. Your true faith is what we need, child. But we are living in difficult times facing evil every day. To fight those evil and keep the light burning bright, we need everyone's help. Brianna." His Holiness closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened his eyes, a bald woman slowly descended before them. "Your Holiness." The bald woman kindly smiled and bowed towards His Holiness. "Believer Brianna is responsible for handling donations. You can make your donation no matter the amount to her." Michael nodded and took out a space ring from the system storage. Then, he handed over the space ring to Brianna. "May the Great One and Two bless your kind heart." Brianna kindly smiled, taking the space ring from Michael. But soon, a glint of surprise emerged in her eyes. I also want to offer a batch of healing potions to the Holy Church every month, believer Brianna. But unfortunately, I can't make the donations in person. So is it okay if someone else made the donation on my behalf? Brianna was still in shock because no one in Elon had ever donated 5 million gold coins in one go. Even some noble families would give less to the Holy Church, yet a youngster like him made a donation of 5 million really touched her heart. Of course, you are a true believer, my child. Only if we had more believers like you. Nightmare almost coughed up blood. Although Nightmare had no idea why he was making donations to the Holy Church, one thing was for sure, Ghost was the last guy who would believe in the Holy Church. The latest episodes are on under the website. Just as Michael planned, after making such huge donations, the Royal News printed his meeting with His Holiness on the front page. The entire continent now knew about Ghost's friendly relationship with the Holy Church, which became another ally of Ghost. Since he made a 5 million donation and offered to send Holy Guards a batch of healing potions free every month, His Holiness gladly gave access to the teleportation portal. Instead of walking into the portal right away, Michael went to meet King Kramer. He would have walked to the castle if he hadn't reached the fusion stage. Since he was, Michel flew to the castle and landed right before the castle gates. As soon as his feet touched the ground, several armed guards rushed to the gates, thinking they were under attack. Relax, I am here to meet King Kramer. The soldiers did not loosen their bodies. Tell your king Ghost wants to see him. Ghost? The soldiers were startled. Although they hadn't seen him in person, they had all heard about him. I thought a fusion stage cultivator would receive a different welcome. Michael informed the soldiers about his cultivation stage in an indirect manner. It took the soldiers a few moments to realize the graveness of the matter. But before one of them could run back into the castle, a group of fancily dressed people approached the gate surrounded by several more armed soldiers. The one who led the group was a middle-aged man with wavy shoulder-length silvery hair. He was neither too short nor too tall but rather had an average build. His thick mustache perfectly complemented his clean-shaven rosy skin. Just by looking at the silver robes and the golden crown on his face, Michael could tell who this man was. King Kramer, Michael greeted the king with a smile. Sorry to drop by unannounced. I was in the neighborhood and it'd be rude if I didn't come to meet you, King Ghost. Unexpectedly, it was the silvery-haired woman who greeted Michael instead of the king. To a man who saw countless heaven-defying beauties from both this universe and other universes, Michael wasn't startled by the queen's charm. Queen-At, I presume. The guards quickly opened the steel gate between the two parties as Michael stepped forward. Sorry for all this, King Ghost. Oh, please call me Ghost. I insist. The latest episodes are on an website. As you wish. King Kramer finally opened his mouth and extended his arm to shake Michael's. Honor to finally meet you, King Kramer. Michael firmly shook his hand. Please come inside. The queen welcomed Michael with a bright grin on her face. You must be the only king who doesn't like to be called king and surrounded by royal guards. The queen melodiously laughed while leading Michael to the majestic castle. What's the point of being a fusion stage cultivator when I have to surround myself with weaker guards? Now that the queen and king finally heard these words from his mouth, their legs stopped walking. You reached the fusion stage? An old man carrying a thick book and a staff asked Michi in utter surprise. Yes. It's hard to believe, right? Not only the old man but even the king and queen also stared at Michael with clear doubt in their eyes. I am pretty sure you have a mirror device to check the cultivation stage. It's okay, Ghost. We believe you, the queen brushed it off but Michael shook his head. I like to let everyone know that I reached fusion stage, Queen-At, Michael whispered to her. Still, the others heard him. But can I ask why? Isn't it advantageous to keep your cultivation stage hidden? Apparently, the queen was more talkative than the king. But that didn't mean the king was weak. In fact, King Kramer was at core strengthening stage level 10 while Queen-At was just at core formation stage level 3. Visit. For a better user experience, what's the point of reaching fusion stage if you can't show it off, Queen-At? Plus, I don't have to deal with the arrogant young masters and young Mrs. Riddling Elon, Michael chuckled. His words just mesmerized the queen and everyone around. He didn't sound arrogant but domineering. Coupled with his young age, it was too hard for them to believe Ghost was a fusion stage cultivator. Makes sense, King Kramer nodded as they finally reached the enormous throne hall. Bring the mirrors. King Kramer ordered the old man and waited for the servants to set up the sofas. After everything was said and done, Michael took the seat facing Queen-Amat and King Kramer. Being a fusion stage cultivator felt great to Michael. Normally, one would have to wait for an audience with King Kramer, but now, he entered the castle escorted by the king and queen themselves. He used to feel slightly jealous of Layla and Elder Kane, but not anymore. Quickly a maid approached Michael, slightly shivering from top to bottom. "I will take any kind of fruit juice, please." "No booze, thank you." Despite Michael's status and cultivation, he treated the maid with dignity. It was such a small gesture, but his words to the maid surprised Queen-Amat. "So what's the true purpose of your visit here, Ghost?" King Kramer asked after the maid left the throne hall. He also dismissed the soldiers except for a few royal guards who stood in the corner, watching the king and queen. "I came to meet His Holiness and dropped by to meet the two of you because I was kinda hoping I could buy a piece of land in your kingdom." "Piece of land? That's wonderful. Royal land would be honored to gift you," Queen-Amat said with an ear-to-ear grin as the king nodded. "Freebies break friendships, Queen-Amat. So I was thinking I could name either of you as a shareholder of the majestic branch I will open here in Royal Land. Is it possible? Sorry to be blunt, but I was actually thinking it. In fact, I have the same proposal to the King of Draddle and Kethan too." "Really?" Queen-Amat's voice trailed off as she looked to be in deep thought about Michael's offer. Of course, Michael knew they would accept it, but they had to pretend to be thinking so they wouldn't look like power-hungry wolves. Regardless of their status as king and queen, they would still be wanting to be a part of something big as majestic. Why? Because Ghost was a fusion stage cultivator, and being an ally to a fusion stage cultivator came with countless benefits. From Michael's perspective, he needed allies. By making them King Kramer and Queen-Amat shareholders in the Majestic, they would not only become his allies, but the Majestic would get the protection of the entire kingdom. Once the king and queen taste the benefits, Michael could reap more from the two of them. I mean, just think about it. An outsider comes to your home and runs things without giving you any sort of tribute. It's not fair, right? That's why I want the two of you to be a part of Majestic in Royal Land. Visit. For the best known experience while they were talking, the old man who went to bring the mirror finally arrived at the hall with several other nobles. They all had one thing in common: curiosity. The last time Michael saw the device was when he competed in the Elon tournament. Of course, the mirror before him looked a little smaller and lightweight. It was apparent to Michael that the Guardians had made some modifications to the device. One single shout from the dormant Hydra, and they still hadn't recovered their ability to perceive someone else's cultivation level. "Let's do this, shall we?" Michael rubbed his palms together excitedly before walking toward the mirror. "We made some changes to the contraption, Master Ghost. This one is specifically designed to check whether someone is at the fusion stage or not. I hope you don't mind it." "Why would I?" Michael just shrugged, placing his palm on the mirror. As soon as his palm touched the mirror, he felt a suction force and a warm sensation throughout his body. The mirror remained unmoving for a second before slowly starting to radiate a bright purple light from within. "Fusion stage," the old man mumbled under his breath. "How am I doing?" Michael winked at the nobles as they stared at Michael in pure amazement. Michael was sure they would spread the news of his cultivation stage throughout the continent by tomorrow morning. "We should agree, don't you think?" Queen-Amat whispered to King Kramer. "It's always better to have allies," King Kramer nodded, agreeing with Queen-Amat's words. Now that Michael had finished proving himself, he returned to his seat. "Well, King Kramer and Queen-Amat," Michael looked at them for their answer, "we will definitely consider it, Ghost. There are some rules and regulations for us to own something. What about we give us your answer, just say, tomorrow night?" Queen-Amat asked, just as Michael predicted. "Cool. The latest howdies are on an website." At the moment, Michael was in his Dark Lord form in the Dark Forest. Azazel was cleaning the room while Nightmare and Vidora played with each other on the bed. "My lord," as Michael was correcting his robes before the mirror, Eladir entered the room. "I am ready," Eladir said. "Let's go then." Nightmare stopped flicking Iag on the head and leaped to land on Michael's shoulder. "You're not coming, buddy," Michael said to Nightmare as he nodded. "I know. Where is Gaia, though? What's taking her so long to kill one puny human?" Iag sounded lazy and tired of playing with Nightmare for so long. However, what Michael said next excited her. "She will join us later at the Pirate Haven Aiden." "Buddy," Michael looked at Nightmare, Return to royal land and stay in the room. If anyone asks for me, contact me. Michael had to stay in the royal land castle due to King Kramer and Queen Amat's hospitality. They were quite insistent for him to stay the night. Since Michael did not have any more business to conduct in royal land, he agreed to stay the night. As far as they were concerned, Michael was cultivating in his room. Nightmare nodded before vanishing into thin air. After Nightmare teleported to King Kramer's castle, Vidora landed on Michael's shoulder with a single leap. Surprisingly, a rune glowed on their body, and in a few seconds, they too vanished. But they didn't teleport like Nightmare. Instead, they just vanished from the naked eye thanks to Eladir's little rune. The cloaking rune would have been perfect for Ghost. However, according to Eladir, anyone above the body strengthening stage could see through the rune. Hence, there was no point in using the rune in the Cultivation continent, and Michael had no need to use the rune in the southern continent. He did ask Eladir about placing the rune on his army, only to learn that the rune requires a high amount of arch energy. 50 arch energy crystals to hide oneself for 5 minutes wasn't a very eye-catching deal to Michael. Azazel, you go to the crypt and use the undead to clean the place. Dalar and Jonah also need a new working place, so see what you can do. Visit. For the best known experience, as you wish, my lord. Following Nightmare, Azazel disappeared from the room. Finally, Michael and Eladir were teleported to Kaya's mansion by the system, and when they appeared in the room, Maxine and Corey greeted Michael with a deep bow. My lord! My lord! Michael flicked his wrist as the throne materialized behind the oak table. He plunged onto the throne as Eladir took a long look at both Maxine and Corey for a few moments. Maxine, Corey, meet Eladir, Lord Eladir. Eladir just nodded. Maxine, is it ready? Asked Michael. Yes, my lord. It's on the Big Bertha. Michael then turned his gaze towards Corey. So they haven't taken our offer? No, my lord. To be honest, I didn't expect them to be this stupid. A true pirate would have seen the opportunity. These are just mindless drunkards. I am glad you've seen the truth, Corey. Pirating is a fragile and dangerous business. If you don't change your ways, eventually you'd go extinct. It's time we root out these weeds and unite the pirates under one banner, my banner. It'd be an honor for the pirates to serve you, my lord. Maxine felt proud and excited to unite all the pirates under the Dark Lord instead of the Pirate Lords. As a pirate herself, she knew the dangers of being a pirate. It was only a matter of time before the kingdoms unite against the pirates and strike them down. Especially, the Empress of Ar was keen to wipe out the pirates from not only the waters of Ar but also from the southern continent. The latest episodes are on under website. However, once the Dark Lord unites the pirates and brands them as something else, the Empress might not go all out in a war against them. Go wait for me on the ship. Michael dismissed the two ladies and turned his gaze towards Eladir. You have something to ask? I don't quite clearly see your play here, my lord. First, you went to ally yourself with the Holy Church and now openly waging war against the pirates. Michael smiled. Who is hunting the Dark Lord along with the Guardians? The Holy Church. Ghost is now a friend of the Holy Church. Other than the obvious benefits such as being an ally to a growing superpower, now I hold the key to the Holy Church's destruction. Eladir looked more confused than before. I can only keep Ghost and the Dark Lord separate for a time, Eladir. Eventually, someone would always figure it out, someone smarter than I am. So when they figure it out, the Holy Church would be the last organization to come out full swinging. Because they would be crucified along with Ghost. By getting donations and being allies to Ghost, the Holy Church has become an ally to the Dark Lord. How could they go against Ghost's allies when they themselves are one? Eladir finally learned Ghost's reasoning behind his visit to the Holy Church. Now that the Holy Church received donations from Ghost, the Holy Church wouldn't be able to wage a war against Ghost because they would be busy fighting the public and the Guardian Guild. What about your other allies? Asked Eladir. I have plans for them. But before someone figure out my identity, I better be strong and have an army strong enough to fight off our foes. We have to, my lord. I have seen what Skyhall could do. They would go to any length to stop you. They are the real evil in the form of good. Don't fret it, Eladir. They couldn't stop me when I wasn't even born. Now I am here and I have a score to settle. Michael willed the system as the skull mask covered his face. Just like a breezing wind, the two of them disappeared from the room. At that time, Gibson was preparing everything for Big Bertha's journey towards the pirate haven Aden. Since Maxine announced to the crew that the Dark Lord would arrive to meet them, The crew was extra motivated and didn't dare to slack off. Unlike the Silent Reaper, the Big Bertha was in pristine condition. No one would believe the ship was manned by the pirates, or one would recognize the crew as pirates. Instead, the crew looked like disciplined soldiers wearing black leather armor and carrying new cutlasses. Visit. For a better user experience, of course, they still possessed habits such as getting as drunk as possible and eating without any restrictions. Maxine and Corey were still in the process of turning the pirates into soldiers, and Big Bertha's crew were the front runners to become disciplined warriors of the Dark Lord. Bring it out. Gibson climbed out of the lower decks and shouted at the crew before throwing a roll of ropes down the hole. Pull with all your strength. That thing is heavy. Maxine stood at the other end of the rope along with a group of pirates. The rope was attached to a pulley to make lifting the mortar a bit easier. You can lift it now. Gibson and Maxine heard Shorty shouting from the below decks. 1, 2, 3. Maxine counted until 3 to pull down the rope using every bit of her strength. While Maxine was pulling down the rope, Corey remained at the helm, waiting for the Dark Lord. Even without the so-called new weaponry, the Big Bertha was a beast. The upper deck alone had 10 cannons on each side. In addition, they fitted the Big Bertha with 3 rows of cannons, each with 15 broadside cannons. One side of Big Bertha totally had 40 cannons, making the total count of cannons a whopping 80 cannons. Usually, that number of cannons would slow down the ship, but the Dark Lord ordered them to do so despite the drawbacks. When Corey did a test run with Big Bertha, it took them almost 5 minutes to reload all the cannons. Unless they fixed the reload speed somehow, a talented ship captain could do a lot of damage to Big Bertha within 5 long minutes. As Corey was weighing the pros and cons of the Big Bertha, the Dark Lord finally appeared beside her, almost sending shivers down her spine. My lord, our Dark Lord is at the helm. Gibson shouted as loud as he could when he saw Michael. Fortunately, the mortar was in place, or they would have saluted at Michael and dropped it down the hole. As Michael climbed down the steps from the helm, the crew bowed their heads towards Michael and Eladir. Corey followed the two of them behind to the mortar, where Michael saw the mortar forged with sturdy black metal and engraved with intricate patterns resembling a coiling dragon. The pirates were so curious to see what this thing could do. Under their curious gazes, Elodie squatted beside the mortar and drew a few symbols on its surface as well as inside the mortar through the firing hole. Although it looked as simple as drawing a few symbols, Michael knew the intricacy behind each rune. Among all the specializations in the world, rune mastery was the most difficult to master. According to Eladir, they had only explored 10% of the entire rune mastery. Michael hoped to bring out the fullest potential of rune mastery with the help of the system. Everyone, including Michael, waited for Eladir to finish. When he finally took his hand off the mortar, several runes brightly radiated crimson red light. Visit. For a better user experience, it's ready. Eladir wouldn't usually show any emotions on his face. Still, even he couldn't help proudly grinning after finishing one of his finest works to date. Gibson set a course to Aden. When the sun rises tomorrow, there will only be one pirate lord. With Corey's fleet following behind, the Big Bertha began her journey towards Aden. Michael remained at the helm looking at the night sky and enjoying the momentary peace. You are in deep thinking, my lord. Maxine came to Michael's side and joined Gibson, Corey, and Eladir. Have you notified Vance and Blackmane? Maxine nodded. Instead of catching the pirates off guard, Michael ordered Maxine to notify Vance and Blackmane about the attack. He wanted the pirates to prepare for the war and use their full might. Only then could Michael destroy them and crush the pirates' morale once and for all. Vance and Blackmane will be waiting for us with all their fleet, my lord. Good. Michael remained calm despite the fact that he was about to face hundreds of ships in an all-out war. Are we really going to destroy them all? Maxine really doubted Michael would destroy the pirates, as he always tried to recruit them. However, by not joining Michael, Pirate Lord Vance and Pirate Lord Blackmane left him with no choice. Some of them, yeah. Can't have a war without casualties, can we? My lord, what about their fleet? The fewer ships we destroy, the more ships to our fleet. Corey added her thoughts, which aligned with everyone. Except for Eladir, who didn't give a damn about the pirate lords, the others wanted the Dark Lord to spare the majority of the ships. At this point, none dared to doubt the Dark Lord. The two pirate lords may have superior numbers, but the Dark Lord could destroy them with a few spells. How should I end the war? Should I kill the two pirate lords in front of their fleet or destroy their fleet in front of them? If you're asking me, I'd say kill the two of them and end it quickly, Eladir shrugged. I agree with Lord Eladir, my lord, Gibson said. Yes, my lord. Killing the two pirate lords would end the war quickly. Most of the pirates would immediately surrender. However, some of the fanatics might choose to fight until death path. We can destroy them to make a statement, Corey exclaimed. They all shared the same thought. Hence, Michael decided to listen to them because what they said was correct. He should capture the ships and strengthen his fleet rather than destroy the ships. It would take years to rebuild those ships. According to Corey, once he conquered their fleet, he might have almost 500 ships in his fleet. You focus on destroying the fanatics. I will deal with Vance and Black Mane. It's a pity they chose false freedom over the opportunity to be something great. Some people are born to live a simple life, I guess. Under the full moon, Michael and his fleet sailed towards Aden. The Big Bertha moved in front of 120 ships, including several frigates and man-of-wars. Such a massive force would terrify any foe. But, while they were sailing forward, Michael noticed a few ships in the distance, following them. Those are Royal Navy, Gibson, who looked at the ships through the spyglass, exclaimed in shock. The latest audios are on under the website. What are they doing in this water? Watching us. They want to see the battle. If I am right, someone very close to the Empress herself is in one of those ships. Should we attack them, my lord? Maxine asked. No, let them watch. They are not a threat to us. Meanwhile, in Aden, Vance was looking at the ocean through the window while taking long, deep sips of rum. Several pirate captains in his fleet accompanied him in the room. Some of them looked worried, but some looked outright excited. How long till they reach our waters? Asked Vance. Melina, the red-haired pirate who Corey met, answered, for hours top. We will show them who rules this part of the sea, pirate lord, one of the pirate captains exclaimed. Still have no news about Black Mane, huh? Ignoring the pirate captain, Vance questioned Melina. No, but we have his fleet. So even if he doesn't show up, we can still beat Pirate Lord Corey and her fleet. Vance took another long sip and threw the empty mug away. What about the magic-wielding captain? Lucifer? Is he coming too? As soon as they heard the name Lucifer, the pirate captains who were afraid became more terrified. According to Maxine's note, yes, he is coming. I want to show him the true power of the pirates. I want to show him why those freaks never dared to set foot on our seas, Vance growled, and looking at his fearless tone, some of the pirate captains, including Melina, became courageous. No negotiation. The moment they come into our range, fire at will, Vance ordered. Everything is ready, Vance. Melina approached Vance. Well, take care of them. After today, there'll be only one true pirate lord, she seductively whispered into his ears. Visit. For the best-known experience. Black Mane, you bastard? Where the fuck are you? Vance looked at the hundreds of ships lining around the island, forming a defense line. Although the fleet included Blackman's forces, Vance still missed the guidance and leadership of Black Mane. I also took the liberty to initiate the backstabbing. Vance, Melina licked her lips, and Vance, he just grinned. After everything was said and done, Vance came to his ship, a brigade built for speed rather than battle. Vance named his ship the Sailing Wind. The name suited the ship perfectly because it was one of the fastest ships on the southern continent. Vance used the ship for plundering hundreds of merchant ships transporting rum. Sailing Wind's speed always enabled Vance to hit and run until the opponent's ship was in no condition to fight. Vance even brought down a man-of-war with his ship. Now, he waited for Big Bertha to appear in his sight along with hundreds of ships behind him. Look! The pirate who stood atop the crow's nest shouted as Vance looked at the horizon through the spyglass. They are here. Vance could see the giant frigate sailing towards them, leading the fleet of Corey. All those ships flew a pure black flag instead of Corey's flags. Like storm clouds, the black ships approached Aden at the horizon. Get ready, pirates! Vance shouted as the sound of cannons creaking resonated throughout the area. Additionally, a loud bell rang in Aden, indicating the approaching danger. As soon as they enter our range, fire with all you have. Vance shouted again. Even in the face of war, he didn't neglect to bring a barrel of rum and chug a full mug down his throat. Every cannon in the ship and Aden aimed at the horizon and prepared to fire at will as soon as they enter their range. However, all the ships, including the Big Bertha, stopped a few meters away from their firing range. Why are they stopping? Melina asked, probably to negotiate. What if they don't sail towards us? We will go to them and sink them where they stand. Vance raised his mug, riling up his crew. They all let out a thunderous battle cry and prepared to move forward. But suddenly, they saw a bright red light shooting out of Big Bertha. What the hell? Vance and his ship turned red like someone aiming a red spotlight at them. Boom. While they were in confusion, a thunderous booming sound echoed through the calm sea. Vance looked up at the sky to see countless stars falling down upon them. Vance and his ship didn't even realize what just hit them until they exploded into bits and pieces. Oh my god! Pirate Lord! Vance. Shit! The latest episodes are on the website. Dark magic. The pirates were in utter confusion. Moreover, they were terrified. After destroying Vance's sailing wind, the red spotlight fell on a couple of more ships, and the result was the same. Boom, boom, boom. At this time, the pirates did not wait for Cory's fleet to enter their firing range but began to fire the cannons aimlessly at Big Bertha. As the pirates were raining down cannonballs, a dark cloud slowly flew towards Aiden. Surrender! The demonic voice swept across the sea, terrifying the pirates. Gradually, the dark cloud faded away, revealing the Dark Lord to the pirates. Fire! However, a daring pirate captain decided to fire at Michael. But before he could take aim, the red spotlight fell on the ship. Boom! The result was the same as the ship exploded into smithereens. The mortar was more powerful than Michael expected. Michael did not stop. Instead, he pointed at Aiden, signaling Maxine to aim the mortar fire at Aiden. He wanted to destroy the walls and the island partially to make a statement. Under the pirates' shocked gazes, countless meteors landed on Aiden, destroying the walls and everything in the explosion's vicinity. Oh my god! Gibson shuddered in fear, looking at all the death and destruction. Instead of stopping with Aiden's walls and a couple of ships, Michael continued to point at ships as Maxine fired the mortar, destroying several ships in under a few minutes. Everywhere Cory turned her gaze, there was nothing but explosions. Vance did not even stand a chance. She thought Michael would fly to Vance, grab him by his neck and kill him in front of the pirates. Yet what happened was the exact opposite. He did not even lift a finger at Vance. If you want to join your friends, fire. Michael's voice amplified to the point it sounded like a thunderclap. The pirates shivered to hear his demonic voice. Even the most fearless pirate captains shuddered and hesitated to order their crew to fire at him. Meanwhile, Big Bertha and Cory's fleet slowly started to sail towards Aiden that was burning like a bonfire. Everything was going according to plan until some of the ships in Cory's fleet began to fire at Big Bertha and the others. Michael quickly turned his gaze towards his fleet to see some ships firing at their allies. Visit. For a better user experience, backup plan, huh? Regardless of the sudden betrayal, Michael did not even raise a brow. Instead, he just flew toward Big Bertha to deal with the traitors in a most brutal way. Unlike Michael, the others on the Big Bertha were completely caught off guard. Traitors! Shorty leaped onto the railing and shouted viciously. We can't fire at them without damaging them. Gibson pointed at the friendly ship stuck between the Big Bertha and traitors. Cory shivered from top to bottom, fearing what the Dark Lord would do to her because of her crew's betrayal. I should have seen it, Cory mumbled. Whoosh! But all of a sudden, a dark emerald green mist enveloped the ships of the traitors. One by one all the traitor ships got covered in thick green mist. Boom! 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 Suddenly, all the ships enveloped in green mist exploded except one frigate. When the dust and smoke settled down, Gibson and the others saw the Dark Queen hovering above them. Gaia flew towards the last ship of the traitors and saw a few dead bodies on the upper deck. It was apparent to Gaia that the traitors killed those loyal to Cory. Seeing the others explode to death, the rest of them were terrified. Every single one shivered from head to toe and looked as pale as a white sheet. You're traitorous maggots! Gaia's shout shook the frigate and sent shivers down their spines. Michael smiled behind his mask, looking at Gaia in action. Under their gazes, Gaia waved her hand as the poisonous green mist coiled around each individual on the ship. Taking the traitors with her, she flew towards Vance's fleet. Since there was momentary confusion among Cory's fleet, Vance's pirate captains tried to attack them. But Gaia destroyed the traitors faster than Vance's fleet could fire at them. The traitors frantically squirmed against the poisonous mist around them to escape. They used all their strength but to no avail. I would have hated to miss this action, Gaia said, without bothering to hide her killing intent. Visit. For the best known experience. Let me show them what would happen when someone betrays us. Gaia flicked her wrist as all the 20 traitors lined up in front of them in the sky. At that moment, all the eyes were on the traitors. Her cold gaze swept across the traitors as she raised her hand and clenched her fist. As soon as she closed her fist, a sliver of green mist slowly rose upwards and entered their nostrils. Michael wasn't interested in anything else other than watching the traitors violently twitch and puke dark red blood through every pore in their bodies. Not a single sound could be heard except their traits, screaming and wailing for help. It was a long, slow, painful death. But, compared to their deaths, Vance and the others were gifted. At least, they died instantly instead of suffering Gaia's poison that corroded their organs from within. After a few minutes, the traitors turned into a bloody puddle and oozed down into the ocean. Now who wants to fight? Michael's thunderous demonic voice echoed through the silent ocean. None of them dared to raise a finger at the Dark Lord this time. Instead, the pirates dropped their swords and stared at Corey's fleet, slowly sailing towards Aden. Michael and Gaia floated in the sky until all of Corey's fleet surrounded the island. Afterward, Corey's men rushed into Aden, facing no resistance from the pirates. At that moment, the pirates thought about nothing else except what was going to happen to them. They had no one to lead or give them guidance. Once Corey's men captured all the defense cannons in Aden, Michael descended towards Vance's castle. The residents of Aden, mostly young women, and elderly pirates stared at Michael in utter shock. They couldn't believe seeing someone flying and using spells. Some even dropped to their knees and began to worship, mistaking Michael and Gaia for gods. Ignoring them, Michael entered Vance's room through the window and waited for his subordinates to arrive. Bang! Michael raised his hand, blasting away Vance's chair with a gust of wind. Then, he brought the skull and bones thrones with a flick of his wrist. But before he plunged into his throne, he looked at the dark corner of the room. You can come out now. Gaia sat on her throne, resting her one leg atop one before Michael, and waited for the united guest to reveal himself. After hearing Michael's words, a tall man walked out of the shadows, slow clapping. The man had a long bushy beard braided like Vikings and outlined his eyes with dark mascara. He walked out of the shadows using a cane to support his limping. Although the man looked vicious and had an aura of a pirate, he dressed like a higher army official. He was dressed in white and had medals and ribbons attached to his chest while several strips of colors were engraved on both of his broad shoulders. Except for the long white coat and a white feather hat, the man looked similar to a Navy officer on Earth. Michael just sat on his throne and waited for the man to introduce himself, although Michael had already guessed the man's identity. Lucifer, aka the Dark Lord. The man used his cane to raise the chair from the ground before sitting on it. Pirate Lord Blackmane. The pirates still believe you are on a voyage, Michael calmly said in his demonic voice. What Michael said was the truth. The man before them was none other than the most powerful pirate lord of the three, Gibbs Blackmane Jet. Visit. For a better user experience, pirates are an endangering species, Lucifer. We both know that. Gaia remained silent despite the fact she didn't like how he addressed Michael by his name. I don't blame you for joining the Empress. I have no problem with that as long as your Royal Navy don't raise their flags against my army. On the contrary, Lucifer. I am here to broker peace between the Royal Navy and the pirates. Her Highness believes the new leadership might take the pirates in another direction than the predecessors. Blackmane had a wise tone to his voice. Michael liked how calm Blackmane was despite the obvious fact Michael could kill him with a single snap of his finger. Interesting. I am sure there are conditions, right? Asked Gaia. Simple. The Royal Navy will leave the southern continent waters in exchange for a peace treaty. You don't plunder our merchants and we won't attack you. But you don't conduct business in someone's home without paying them tribute, do you? 20%. The merchants will pay 20% of whatever they are bringing into your waters. It's a nice deal, Gaia whispered into Michael's ears. But Michael had a feeling there was something else in Blackmane's list of things he wanted from them. What else? Michael didn't beat around the bush or accept the deal right away. There is an island not too far from Aden. It belonged to Her Highness' father. He bought the island from a pirate named Isaiah. This is the document proving the claim. Blackmane slowly put his hand into his coat pocket and retrieved a golden parchment. He threw the parchment towards Michi as Gaia caught it in midair and opened it to read the contents. Her Highness would appreciate it if the island is returned to her. For a few minutes, Michael did not respond to Blackmane. I will give the island back to her on one condition. No military bases in my territory. Blackman's eyes showed a glint of reluctance. His moments of silence indicated to Michael that they were planning to use the island as a military base. But now that Michael said no to that, Blackmane had no choice but to agree or let go of the island. Understandable. No military bases. We have no more conditions. We would appreciate it if we sign a contract with all our conditions and terms. You want a signed contract from the Dark Lord? Ha 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 ha. Michael burst into devilish laughter as the room grew darker and darker. Visit. For the best known experience regardless of the phenomenon that could terrify many men, Blackmane remained calm and composed. Sure thing. Tell your Empress the pirates are no more. It's the Dark Army from now on. And they will not bother her merchant ships. Wonderful, finally Blackmane grinned. I will bring the contract tomorrow, Blackmane nodded, standing up from the chair. Michael wondered how he was going to leave the room only to be stunned by Blackmane when he just vanished into thin air. Did he just teleport? Gaia creased her brows. Seems like the Empress is an interesting person, Michael said to Gaia. Leaving the room teleporting was a statement. The Empress wanted Michael to know that they also had ways to use arch-energy inside the void line. Since Michael anticipated it from the most powerful continent in the world, Blackman's little teleportation trick didn't surprise him. My lord. Eventually, Corey and Maxine entered the room after putting out the fire and capturing all the pirates who tried to escape Aiden. It's done, my lord. We removed all the masts and put them in the dungeon beneath the castle. They can't move anywhere unless they want to go swimming, Maxine said with an amused tone. I am sure Vance has a hoard of rum somewhere here. Distribute it among the men. Make sure they have a good time. But no plundering of women, Gaia added coldly. As you wish, my lord. What about the pirates, my lord? Corey asked, looking at the hundreds of ships outside through the window behind Michael. Give them a choice between joining us or leaving Aiden. From now on, there will be no more pirates and piracy. We are going legit, Gaia simply ordered Maxine and Corey. Getting 20% of the merchants without plundering was a great deal. When the word about their deal gets out, more and more merchants will venture into the southern continent. As a result, not only would they get free stuff, but the economy of Jysel and the kingdoms under Michael's control would also drastically improve. To stay in control and power, they needed a steady revenue stream such as this. And you two should take a break too. You deserve it, Michael said as Corey and Maxine nodded because they were tired and needed a break. Ghosty, it's time you return here. The king and queen are asking for you. After Corey and Maxine left the room, Michael heard Nightmare calling him. Let's go back to Royal Land. Visit. For the best known experience. By the time Michael returned to the castle, King Kramer and Queen Amat were waiting for him with a red-haired young man. He adorned matching fiery red robes and had a deviant look to him. Ghost. Meet Moriet, King Kramer's long-distant cousin. Queen Amat emphasized the word distant to Michael. By the look on her face, Michael could see the tension between the two. Several miles distant, Moriet exclaimed with a mocking smile. Pleasure to meet you, Moriet. Michael firmly shook the young man's hands with a smile. The pleasure is all mine. Let's sit, shall we? They all plugged themselves onto the white sofa as the maids brought down several beverages, including orange juice for Michael. It's so amazing to see such a young fusion stage cultivator. I thought all fusion stage cultivators are old, Moriet laughed. People say hardwood never fails, but it's not true always. I mean, no matter how hard you cultivate, if you don't have luck, resources and talent, you can't climb higher stages. Michael took a little sip of his orange juice and told Moriet. That's true, Moriet nodded. But it doesn't matter. If you can't get to the higher stages, enjoy what you have. Yeah, right? Believe me or not, I live by those words. Look at me, I can't get past the body strengthening stage. I tried so many potions and stuff, but I simply lack the talent. So now I'm focused more on enjoying the mortal pleasures instead of sitting in a room, cultivating. Michael noticed Queen Amat rolling her eyes, thinking no one had noticed her. End of the day, enjoying the life all it matters. Michael pretended to agree with Moriet. I am so glad to see someone who's powerful as you agree with my views. Now please tell me what kind of property you're looking for in Royal Land. I have several in the capital and I'd be happy to give one of it to you. I heard you wanted to offer a share? Michael nodded. The latest episodes are on under website. That works great for me too. Now that I remember, one of your people came to me asking to buy one of my buildings and the capital. Pardon me for not agreeing then, Moriet apologized. He was a pervert who wanted to bed Raylene, but he was not a fool to think about her anymore. As Moriet said, he valued his life, and touching a fusion stage cultivator's women would be like jumping into the fire. Therefore, Moriet erased the thought of touching Raylene. It's okay. Is it still available? I'd appreciate it if I can use that building to open up another branch of Hades in Royal Land. Consider the building is yours. I'll send one of my men to you with the deed. Wonderful, Michael grinned. What about we celebrate it over a nice boat party? Michael sighed after hearing Moriet. It's not that Michael was truly disappointed, but he pretended to be upset. As a fusion stage cultivator, Michel could kill Moriet without much worry. To be honest, Michael didn't think King Kramer would go to war with him if he killed Moriet. However, being strong didn't mean he should make more enemies. Instead, Michael chose to use his power to make more allies. Unforgettable, I have to go to Aur to attend the aqua auction. But I give you my word, when I return, I'll definitely attend one of your parties. After all, we are kinda partners right now. Partners, huh? I like the sound of that. Moriet clanked Michael's glass with his wine glass. Although Queen Amat was annoyed, King Kramer looked relieved. Finally, his good-for-nothing cousin got a powerful young man as a friend. King Kramer just couldn't help wishing Moriet would be like Ghost. Queen Amat was Moriet's family, but even she hated him to the core. But none of them noticed the spider crawling on Moriet's sleeves and disappearing into his collar. After everything was said and done, Michael departed from the castle, heading towards the Holy Church. In the mid-air, Gaia and Nightmare joined him. What is this? Michael wiped the cookie crumbs off her mouth. After Michael cleaned her mouth, she grinned from ear to ear. Her eyes were full of excitement, just like Nightmare. So we are finally going to Aur, huh? Asked Gaia. She rubbed her hands together in excitement. It had been so long since she returned to Aur. She couldn't help thinking of her kingdom, Nagaland, an island in the seas of Aur. Visit. For the best known experience. Aren't you guys missing something? You told me you would kill that guy who tried to creep on Raylene, Nightmare asked Michael and Gaia while slowly flying towards the Holy Church. We will go to Aur and meet Eve. Then, teleport back to Royal Land, finish him off and return to Aur again. That way, no one will suspect us, Michael quickly explained to Nightmare on his way to the Holy Church. After several minutes of flying, the yellow maple valley appeared in their eyes. This time, they flew directly towards the Holy Church because Michael had the privilege to fly in the church's vicinity. The teleportation portal was on the northern side of the castle where an enormous garden of roses surrounded the portal. The blue vortex was in the middle surrounded by hundreds of blood-red roses. A bald man approached Michael with a gentle smile when Michael, Nightmare, and Gaia landed on the garden pathway. Believer Ghost. His Holiness asked me to give you access to the portal. I am Believer Maxwell. Michael bowed towards Maxwell and so did Nightmare and Gaia. This is my fiancée, Elia, and my familiar, Nightmare. They are also loyal worshippers of the Great One and Two. Maxwell was stunned to hear a dragon was actually a worshipper of the Great One and Two. But after hearing Ghost, Maxwell grinned so brightly. It feels so great to see youngsters and a dragon believes in the Great One and Two. This world needs more people like you. Gaia almost coughed blood and burst into laughter. One big donation and the entire Holy Church began to believe Michael was a true worshipper of their gods. To be honest, Michael was the last one who would believe in the Great One and Two. He was using these idiots but they had no idea. So instead, they believed Ghost to be a true believer. The exit portal is located in Ysirius in Kingdom Thera. Wonderful. Michael was glad that the exit portal was on Ysirius, Eve's home city. Otherwise, he would have had to fly from one city to Ysirius. He preferred to meet Eve first before starting to explore Aur. Have a wonderful journey, Believer Ghost, Believer Elia, and Believer Nightmare. Maxwell took time to bow towards each of them as they returned the gesture by bowing toward Maxwell. The latest episodes are on under website. May the Great One and Two be with you and guide you on your journey. Maxwell raised his palm, blessing the trio. Afterward, the trio approached the portal. The closer they got to the portal, the stronger they felt the pull. We will meet again soon, Believer Maxwell, Michael said looking over his shoulder before finally walking into the portal. After coming to this world, it took Michael almost 2 years to find time to visit Aur. However, Thanks to his runic teleportation skill, he could go back and forth once he left a rune somewhere on Ar. Thera was a modest kingdom bordered by a calm sea to the north, rich forests to the south, a wide river to the east, and a large mountain to the west. Citizens of Kingdom Thera mainly lived off weaponsmithing, wine brewing, and blacksmithing. The kingdom's landscape was stunning. Green, open fields, astonishing aquatic wildlife, and dramatic rock formations were just a sliver of the charm Thera has to offer, which was why the country was beloved among foreigners. The people of Thera were welcoming towards foreigners and tend to welcome them with friendliness. This was because they felt foreigners could fortify the kingdom's well-being. The city of Xianxia was built at the base of a modest mountain and was truly an ever-growing wonder. Its beauty was matched by the backdrop of ever-clear skies and the snowy mountain. The climate these skies brought was of great importance and also influenced the architectural designs, as the vast majority of buildings were designed to take full advantage of the climate, as more daring elements could be created when you don't have to worry about strong winds. The skyline was riddled with towering tall buildings, and many seemed to have evolved throughout the ages. The culture was rising in Xianxia and had attracted a lot of attention. Many new cultures had left their mark not just on trade and relations, but also on the city's identity. What historically was a city of elves has grown into a multicultural hub where humans, beastmen, and elves coexist peacefully. At that time, inside a brightly lit hall, Michael walked out of the portal along with Gaia and Nightmare. As soon as he stepped out of the portal, the trio was stunned by the man who welcomed them. Maxwell. Michael tilted his head, staring at the man from top to bottom. The man welcomed Michael, Gaia, and Nightmare looked exactly the same as Maxwell. Believer Maxwell is my twin brother. I am Believer Vishrian. Welcome to Kingdom Thera. The man bowed and the trio did the same. Visit. For a better user experience, you must be Believer Ghost, Michael nodded. Yes, and this is my fiancée Elia and familiar Nightmare. After exchanging pleasantries, Vishrian finally led them towards the golden door. While walking towards the door, Michael felt the excitement coursing through his veins. It was time he dominated the most powerful continent in the world. The excitement to explore a new land coursed through his veins. However, Vishrian dosed cold water upon his excitement by taking out a pale blue face mask from his space ring. Put this on before you step aside, Michael creased his brows. I don't get it. There is a plague ravishing Kingdom Thera, Believer Ghost. The sinners are reaping what they sow, Vishrian said so calmly, like it was a simple matter. Plague. Gaia was in a state of shock. The last time a plague hit Ar, millions of people including Nagas died. You don't have to worry about the plague. The Great One and Two protect those who believe in them. These words showed the extent of Vishrian's idiocy. Although the Holy Church believers were good to him, Michael felt he was dealing with a bunch of fanatics. Given a chance, the Holy Church would do more harm than good. They just didn't have the resources and power to rival the Great Eight clans. But with the recent fall of Guardians, the Holy Church was getting more popular among the people. Michael may have given a torch to lunatics in disguise. So are we even allowed to go to Thera? Normally when a plague hit, they close the borders, right? Michael asked, standing before the golden door. They will close the borders soon. So I hope you will get what you're looking for, Believer Ghost. May the Great One and Two be with you and guide you, Vishrian calmly said, opening the door and revealing nothing but soft squashy clouds. There was no building or rods in front of him. Except, Michael saw an endless blue sky with puffy clouds stretched as far as he could see. Only then did he realize he was in the sky. When he took a step outside and turned around, he saw the Gothic-style building that was much grander, just like the one in Royal Land. Visit. For a better user experience, the church was built on a floating mountain like some buildings in Akilan realm. We will meet again soon, Believer Vishrian. Michael quickly bowed towards Vishrian. He wanted to check on Eve. For some reason, he immediately worried about her. It almost felt like the two of them have some kind of strong bond. He didn't know before the Dark Lord used the time travel rune that Eve was his best friend. She sacrificed herself to save him. If it wasn't for her, Michael wouldn't be here. Although the Dark Lord reset the time, the deep friendship bond remained strong. Michael shot out from the mountain like a rocket, leaving a shock wave behind. In his haste, he failed to ask where the Voldegard compound was. Hopefully, Gaia knew where it was. Those are crazy bastards, Michael. A plague hit them? What the fuck? He was so calm. These morons are lunatics, Gaia cursed them, diving towards the city on the land. They seem just as bad as the Guardians, Nightmare said. It doesn't matter now. Let's go meet Eve. There is an opportunity here. No shit, Gaia rolled her eyes. I did some sick shit, but it feels wrong to see the plague as an opportunity. Gaia knew the obvious golden opportunity presented itself in the name of the plague. She knew Michael could pull some miracle and cure the plague. However, it felt wrong to get rich from a plague. I don't feel like that. We are not responsible for the plague. If someone else finds the cure, so be it. Otherwise, we may as well find the cure and sell it for millions. What about the poor? Nightmare asked Michael. There is no poverty in Aur. That's why it's called the most powerful and rich continent in the world. A farmer in Aur earns 10 times more than one in Elon or Azer. Gaia's words didn't only surprise Nightmare but also Michael. Visit. For a better user experience, it seemed like the rulers of other races were far better than the humans in ruling a kingdom. The closer they got to the city, the better Michael could see the majestic view of Ysirius. The city itself looked like a hybrid between fantasy and style. However, despite the majestic tall buildings, the streets looked empty and the gray mist around the city gave a gloomy look to it. The Voldegard compound is that way. Follow me. Gaia pointed at the northern side of the city where Michael saw a mountain resembling Mount Fuji in the distance. Michael and Nightmare flew behind Gaia while noticing the eerie city beneath them. So many sick. Nightmare's superior hearing sense enabled him to hear the countless coughing and vomiting coming from the city. At the moment, inside the Voldegard compound, several dead bodies in plate armor riddled the front yard. Some of the soldiers had their helmets removed, so one could see the grayish skin and the dark green webs of veins underneath the gray skin. The broken fountain in the center was still pumping out water from the lion's head. The dead bodies formed a line surrounding the majestic castle of House Voldegard. A regular gate with great wooden doors, a drawbridge, and hot oil pots guarded the inhabitants of the castle. It was the only easy way in. Like any place in Aur, neatly pruned trees decorated the land along with colorful flower beds. The round towers dwarfed everything below them and were connected by fortified, thick walls made of gray stone. The decorated windows added an extra charm to the castle as the walls had overhanging crenellations for archers and artillery. But at the moment, there were no archers or anyone to man the giant crossbows. The gate which guarded the castle for hundreds of years fell for the first time as the compound of Voldegards became a battlefield. Michael was not the only one who viewed the plague as an opportunity. House Rotgard sieged House Voldegard when the latter was at its weakest. When the plague hit Ysirius, House Voldegard ensured the citizens got the best treatment possible instead of quarantining themselves like many noble families. As a result, many of the Voldegards were infected by the plague and lost their ability to use arch energy. The plague killed almost half of the Voldegards, including several fusion stage protectors. Since they lost the protectors, House Rotgard, which ran away as soon as the plague hit the city, returned to decimate Voldegards for once and for all. But one protector of Voldegard stood between the House Rotgard soldiers and the castle. Eve Voldegard. Like a lioness facing hyenas, she stood tall with her hammer in her hands. The red-armored House Rotgard soldiers cowered after she killed most of their fellow soldiers. When they started the siege, they had 100 soldiers, but now, the number was reduced to 30. Despite Eve's core-strengthening cultivation stage, she even managed to kill a soul-refining stage warrior. Visit. For the best known experience, I can do this all day. Eve wiped off the blood running from her mouth's corner and taunted the surrounded soldiers. Especially, her cold gaze was on the man who led the siege, Igor Rotgard. Igor was a tall youngster with long red hair. He covered his mouth and nose with a red dragon mask. He wore a simple robe that revealed his hairy chest as well as the tattoo of a fire-breathing red dragon. Since all the fusion stage protectors had succumbed to the plague, House Rotgard only sent the core-strengthening stage warriors along with a couple of soul refiners. Fortunately, the soul refiners from Voldegards killed House Rotgard's soul refiners before dying due to the wounds. Eve killed the last soul refiner and many core-strengthening stage warriors and remained the last woman standing from House Voldegard. But you don't have all day. Look at you. You're tired, breathing heavily, and bleeding from your ears. You and I both know you won't stand much longer. So do yourself a favor and step aside. I'll promise to give you a proper burial. Igor said, slowly stepping towards Eve. He was right. And Eve knew it. She could feel the arch energy in her body slowly dating away. Soon, She would lose the sense of arch energy as well as strength in her body. Even lifting her hammer wasn't as easy as before. Every cell in her body screamed at her to drop the hammer and close her eyes. She had been fighting for days without any rest. If it wasn't for House Rotgard's resolution to use minimal force to wipe out House Voldegard, House Rotgard would have destroyed House Voldegard by now. But for some reason, every time Eve blinked, he saw a ghost in his smiling face. It felt like yesterday, she fought together with him. Her sister was fighting for her life in the castle, but all she could think was how good it would be to fight together with Ghost one last time. Step closer, and he'll give you a proper burial, Eve snickered. Well, I tried to be nice, just like my healer said. I think it's time to do things my way. By his way, Igor obviously meant killing Eve. Instead of sending soldiers one by one to her, Igor signaled all 30 soldiers to flank her simultaneously from all directions. Whoosh! Eve began to spin the hammer as fast as she could to the point Igor only saw a blur and heard the whistling sound of the wind. Although he was here to kill Eve and her family, he couldn't help admiring her. He almost felt pity for the Voldegards. Whoa, come on! When Igor noticed his soldiers stepping towards Eve like mindless fools. Visit. For the best-known experience, she will beat the crap out of you if you get too close, idiots. Use your spells for God's sake. The soldiers quickly halted their steps, preparing to cast spells. I swear to gods, one of these days, I am gonna lose my mind and start killing you incompetent fools. After getting yelled at by Igor, the soldiers of Rotgard finally began to cast spells. On the other hand, Eve kept spinning her hammer and prepared herself to be bombarded with spells. She was more of a close combat fighter rather than a spellcaster. Thus, instead of casting spells, she chose to hit her foes with the hammer. It always worked for her and she wasn't going to change now. Pillar of Iron. One soldier at the level 10 core strengthening stage raised his hand, forming a giant pillar made of energy in the air. It was so large and long that it would hit his fellow soldiers before hitting Eve. My expectations are way low for you guys, but holy fuck, you keep surprising me. Igor felt like he was about to lose his mind. Instead, he slowly started to learn why House Rotgard could never surpass House Voldegard. With incompetent soldiers like them, how could they achieve anything, let alone wipe out the Voldegards? He got more furious when he noticed the soldier keeping the pillar in the air instead of just hitting Eve with it. Hit her! Igor shouted. He wanted the pillar to hit the others more than Eve because they were just staring at the pillar instead of finishing casting spells. Yes, boss! Finally, the soldier shouted and brought the pillar, swinging down at Eve. Boom! However, the moment the pillar hit Eve, instead of Eve flying away, it was the soldiers who got scattered by the shockwave. The shockwave didn't spare Igor either, as he too was sent flying several meters by the force. When Igor managed to get himself to his feet, he saw someone standing in front of Eve with a black shield. Ghost! Eve couldn't believe her eyes. A fucking fusion stage? What the fuck? Igor scratched his eyes in utter disbelief. The man who shielded Eve looked so young, perhaps younger than him. Yet he was at the fusion stage. Thank you for inviting me to a plague-ridden city, Eve. Ghost rolled his eyes. How can I suffer alone? Eve let out an exhausted chuckle, stumbling forward. I got your back. Michael quickly wrapped his hand around Eve's shoulder to steady her. Visit. For a better user experience. You know you don't have to do this, right? Eve could barely utter these words. I do. Michael gave a quick rub to her shoulder and turned his gaze towards Igor. Dude, look, this can go two ways. I will kill you and your guys and your family will get involved. Fight me, my family will get involved. The two families will fight an all-out war. We both suffer and another one will try to take out the one who survives. Or you take your guys and head home and wait for the plague to wipe out the Voldegards. Michael calmly talked to Igor. If you die here, it doesn't matter if your family kills me or not. You will be under 6 feet instead of enjoying your golden age. So why don't you have a little patience and choose the second option? Igor deeply thought about what the youngster just said. Finally, it made sense to Igor. There was no point in dying, and Igor knew no way in hell he could defeat a fusion stage warrior with these incompetent fools. Boss, we should get out here. My mask has a crack in it. Mine too. Oh my god, we are gonna die. Boss, save us. Looking at the soldiers shouting, Michael almost laughed. Oh fuck, they are embarrassing me, Igor screamed inside. If anyone asked, I fought and survived a fusion stage cultivator. Got it? Igor asked his men as they frantically bobbed their heads up and down. They wanted to get out of the place as fast as they could and nothing else mattered to them. Finally, after 2 days of battle, Eve saw Igor and his men flying away from their compound. After their figures disappeared into the clouds, she heaved a sigh of relief. Wow, those are really different. Where I came from, they would have chosen death. Don't be too happy. They will return here with more guys. And what the hell? When and how did you reach the fusion stage? I'd love to explain, but can we do it inside? I was kinda hoping for a grand welcome from you. I have to say, I am a little bit disappointed. Visit. For a better user experience, it's not too late to go back to Elon Ghost, Eve whispered while Michael was taking her back inside the castle. And spread the plague to Elon? No thanks. How about we cure the plague and get filthy rich, huh? At this point, Eve couldn't hear him clearly. She just smiled and closed her eyes, trusting Ghost got her back. With Eve dosing out on his shoulder, Michael pushed open the giant black metal door to see the gloomy, dimly lit hallway void of any life. Just like any other castle hallways, the walls were decorated with portraits of various Voldegards. As Michael was walking on the red carpet, he could hear coughs and growling coming from inside. Jenny. Eve began to mumble under her breath. I got her, Michael whispered to Eve, walking her to the hall. As soon as he stepped out of the hallway, the sight of countless people on the marble floor welcomed him. The people were coughing and vomiting blood. He didn't expect the air to be so pungent with a strong nauseating smell. It was enough to turn any grown man's face green. You better pray I don't get sick, bastard, Michael heard an angry shout and looked up to see Gaia climbing down the stairs with Nightmare on her shoulder. And Eve Voldegard, I presume? Gaia looked at Eve, who kept mumbling Jennifer's name. What then ruckus out there? Did you kill them all? Gaia asked, standing on the stairs instead of getting to the hall. Nah. They seemed nice. When I said to turn back and leave, they really did that. If it was back on Elon, we would have had an all-out war by now. We may have something far worse in our hands. Gaia looked at the elves, humans, and beast men with grey skin on the floor. She creased her brows, looking at them growling and coughing up blood. Look what we found. Then, with a flick of her wrist, Gaia took out an empty vial from her space ring. She threw it at Michael, and when he caught the vial, he immediately recognized what was inside the vial, just by the smell of it. Our healing potion. They were treating them with our healing potion, Gaia said with a tinge of surprise hiding within her voice. Finding a treatment. That's half the battle won. Let's put her in her room and start working on a cure. With the system's help, finding a cure for the plague didn't even seem like a big deal to Michael. But, as an alchemist, he had a few ideas about where to start. We may know where her room is. Follow me. Nightmare leaped into the air and flapped his wings, leading Michael above the stairs to the second floor. Visit. For the best known experience, Michael took Eve in his arms and flew behind Nightmare. Despite the fact there was a woman in his arms, Gaia didn't feel the slightest jealousy because she trusted him. Plus, Michael told Gaia about how he felt about Eve. If Eve was a friend of Ghost, she would be a friend of hers too. Following Nightmare, Michael entered a spacious corridor and flew past several rooms. Every single room contained a sick person inside. After passing 10 or so rooms, Michael came before a marble door where he saw the name Eve Voldegard engraved. Gaia pushed open the door, but instead of finding an empty room, they found Jennifer lying in a large circle bed in the dark room. The curtains were all shut to prevent any light from coming through the window. To be honest, Michael felt like he had entered a boy's room because the room was messy as hell. There was not a single book in the room, but broken dummies, swords, shields, and robes were thrown all over the place. He even saw a brat hanging onto a portrait of a lion. Jennifer's skin was gray, unlike Eve's, and they saw blood oozing out of Jennifer's ear, drenching the white pillow beneath. Michael gently placed Eve beside Jennifer. Although he shouldn't place Eve beside a patent like Jennifer, Eve was already infected, and there was no point in quarantining Eve. They were all past the point of getting quarantined. Instead, Michael focused on finding the cure. As a first step, Michael placed his hand on Eve, sticking a needle inside her wrist from his APD. He took a blood sample from Eve and took a giant needle from his system storage. That's one big-ass needle, Gaia raised her brows, seeing Michael sticking the needle into Jennifer's neck and sucking out enough blood to turn her face paler. Even after taking a giant needle through her neck, Jennifer didn't move an inch. Nightmare could barely hear her heartbeats. If he was right, Jennifer didn't have long to live. Maybe a week or two at most. Michael put the 2 vials of blood into his system storage before summoning the system. System, analyze the blood sample and offer me a cure. The system level is too low to find a cure by analyzing the 2 blood samples. The system can find a formula to the cure if the host provides either a blood or a tissue sample of patient 0. At the moment, Michael didn't have enough points to upgrade the system. He would rather have the points in case of an emergency rather than spend them on the system. For some reason, Michael felt he would need the points soon. Besides, he would return to Maze Roth soon. No matter what, Maze Roth was a place controlled by Sky Hall. It would be stupid to venture into enemy territory without having backup plans. Patient 0, huh? Eve might have an idea. Michael sat beside Eve, taking out a healing potion from his system storage. What's the plan? Asked Gaia. To find a cure, I need the first infected person. I think Eve might know who that was. Visit. For the best known experience. A thin needle extended from Michael's wrist, entering Eve's neck. Michael slowly sent the healing potion into Eve's bloodstream. Eve's breathing improved after the healing potion entered her body. As a result, slight rosiness returned to her skin. Gaia, who sat beside Jennifer at the other end of the bed, saw Eve's finger twitching. Boom. Suddenly, the windows shattered as the hammer shot into the room and landed in Eve's hand. That's cool. Nightmare shrunk himself to land between Eve and Jennifer. He tried to touch the hammer, but when he did, a bolt of electricity entered his body. Ah! Nightmare jolted back. What happened? Asked Gaia, chuckling. It zapped me. Nightmare complained and bore his teeth at the hammer. On the other hand, Eve's breathing got normal as she slowly opened her eyes to see Michael smiling back at her. So it wasn't a dream. Her smile suddenly froze as she jerked her head aside to see Jennifer beside her. Jenny, she is still sick, Gaia answered her, taking Eve's gaze away from Jennifer for a moment. Eve, this is my fiancé I told you about, Elia. And that's Nightmare. I wish we had met under different circumstances. Gaia reached out to shake Eve's hand. Eve gritted her teeth to fight the pain and shook Gaia's hand. After Gaia firmly shook Eve's hand, Nightmare gently reached Eve with a leap and nudged Eve's face. It'll be all right. You have the best miracle worker in the whole world. Did you know I was death-kissed, and he saved me? I don't know what death kiss is, but I assume it's something worse. Far worse, Gaia nodded. Yes, the point is we can find a cure. Nightmare's kind words put a gentle smile on Eve's face. However, the smile contained misery and sadness rather than delight. The latest episodes are on under website. Our best healers tried before succumbing to the plague. Our only hope is the heavenly alchemists. Fuck the heavenly alchemists. You have the godly alchemist right in front of you. Gaia's brash words quite surprised Eve, but what she heard from ghosts surprised her even more. I can find a cure if you get me to the person who got infected first. Any idea who that was? Before answering Michael's question, Eve flicked her wrist, taking out a healing potion. This is the last one, Eve sighed before gently opening Jennifer's mouth to pour the healing potion into her mouth. I don't know when the shipment is coming next. You do know Ghost brewed that potion, right? Eve took a deep breath and nodded as an answer to Gaia's question. After the plague hit 2 weeks ago, no one could get their hands on them. I sent someone to ask for yourself, but he never came back. Weird. How much did you pay for a potion? 25,000, after the plague. Before that, it's 15 to 18,000. As soon as these words escaped Eve's mouth, Gaia's eyes went wide, and the veins in her eyes popped, turning her eyes red. We were being scammed. We sell the 80% pure healing potion for 9,000 and the 90% one for 12,000. When I get my hands on that motherfucker who is screwing us, I'll cut his head and shove it way above where the sun doesn't shine. Gaia's words frightened Eve as she never expected a girl like her to be so foul-mouthed and brash. Eve looked at Nightmare to see him grinning embarrassedly. You'll get used to it. That's not a problem we have to deal with right now. Eve, who was the first person to get infected? Asked Michael. A dark elf. But he is buried in Xianxia, a village in Ysirius. I don't think they would let us excavate his remains. We will get arrows instead. Permission. There is no way they would let us. Then we want, Michael calmly said, visit. For a better user experience, we will go there by night, dig his grave, take whatever ghost needs, and get the hell out of there before no one notices us. Gaia quickly laid out a plan as Eve stared at them wide-eyed. It was shocking to see Ghost and Elia talk so casually about grave robbing inside a dark elf territory. Usually, Eve would have stopped them, but looking at her sister and thinking about her family, she couldn't say no to something that might lead Ghost to find a cure. Are you sure you can find a cure for this? The last time Eve heard, the entire kingdom of Thera and the Empress Court of Healers were trying to come up with a cure yet had no breakthrough. However, Ghost talked so simply about finding a cure. His words sounded confident rather than arrogant. Somehow, Eve believed he could really find the cure. After all, Michael had a reputation for pulling several miracles, such as becoming the youngest fusion stage cultivator. Even Rowena wasn't as young as Michael when she reached the fusion stage. But before we do anything, we need more healing potions. Unfortunately, I don't have enough to keep everyone in the castle sustained. Can you brew enough potions if you had the ingredients? Eve quickly asked Ghost. If I brewed until the nightfall, we would have enough to keep them alive until I come up with a cure. What about moving to another safe house or something? Those guys who attacked you won't stay far away for long. They might get impatient and try to wipe you out. I know a place. Eve quickly thought of the place her father bought weeks before he fell sick. Since it was a recent purchase, none of the outsiders knew about it. Does this place happen to have a portal connected to it? Unfortunately, Eve shook her head. We have to fly there, Michael pondered for a moment before standing up from the bed. Okay, hey, race the plan. Elia, put everyone in a large carriage and fly there. I will stay here and brew the healing potions. Michael could fly to Eve's safe place with the two girls, but Michael wanted to stay in the castle to kill in case anyone showed up to wipe out the Voldegards. Suppose House Rotgard sent fusion stage cultivators to finish the job. In that case, Michael could turn into Dark Lord, wipe them out and earn enough experience points to level up without worrying about revealing his true self. Ghost had to fear making enemies but not the Dark Lord. Why are you doing this, Ghost? You have only known me for a few days, Yves's voice stuttered. To be honest, I have this feeling. A feeling you and I are so close, like best friends. For a change, Michael just told Eve the truth instead of making up a story. Eve was completely taken aback by surprise as she too had the same feeling. Visit. For a better user experience despite everything, Eve sadly chuckled. I have the same feeling too. Is it weird? I mean, we've only known each other for a few days, but I feel like we've known each other for ages. I think we may have been best friends in our previous lives. Who knows? We may have been. Michael just smiled before looking at the front yard through the hole in the window. The previously neatly taken care of and pruned front yard now looked like a battlefield. All those soldiers deserved a proper burial, but Michael had the living to save. After finding the cure, he didn't only have the chance to get rich but also had a way to solidify his friendship with House Voldegard. If he played his cards right, he could become an influential person in R right out of the bat. To achieve anything, he had to find the cure first. Follow me. I will show you the storage. I have to give you everything you need before I lose consciousness like the others. Eve gestured at them to follow her behind. She took a deep breath and took each step with great difficulty. When you lose consciousness, just relax and try not to worry about anything. When you wake up, everything will be back to normal, Michael said, following Eve through the corridor. I doubt it, Ghost. Most of the protectors are dead except my father and uncle. Even if you manage to cure them, it'd be near impossible for the House Voldegard to get back on its feet. Difficult times lie ahead, Ghost. Although Eve sounded strong, Michael could sense the sorrow and despair in her tone. As she said, even if he cured the plague, the House Voldegard wouldn't be as strong as it used to be. Several other clans might attempt to take over the Voldegard or what's left of it, like vultures. However, there was a way where House Voldegard could survive and dominate Thera. We can help you with that, but it depends on how ruthless you are, Gaia exclaimed. Even with Ghost, if Eve didn't have the resolution and ruthlessness to do what's necessary, no one could revive House Voldegard. Michael and Gaia were on the same wavelength as she had the same idea as Michael. I saw my men getting slaughtered in front of my eyes. They died so House Voldegard could live. I think that would make me more ruthless than you actually think I am, Elia. Good. When you are in a position where you can't reach your foes, bring them down to your level. How are we going to do that? Eve curiously asked Gaia. We are going to use the plague against all your enemies. Eve immediately halted her steps to turn around to look at both Michael and Gaia. Nightmare wasn't as surprised as Eve because he expected it. On the contrary, He would have been surprised if Michael and Gaia didn't try to exploit the plague to their advantage. Visit. For the best-known experience. You are serious? Eve asked, pretty shaken up by Gaia's words. We specialize in dismantling enemies, Eve. Just think of us as your hired fixers, Michael grinned, giving Eve some courage to move forward with their plan. But even if she disagreed, Michael had already decided to weaponize the plague and spread it to his foes. He just needed some guinea pigs, and House Rotgard seemed like a great testing place. After Eve, Gaia and Nightmare left the castle, Michael sat in the middle of a room filled with racks. Each rack contained several rows, and each row had various herbs and ingredients. The whole room contained at least a ton of ingredient one needed to refine thousands of pills and potions. At that moment, Michael had an oak table before him with a bunch of ingredients and empty vials. My lord, hey, raise the glass of water you asked. Azazel brought Michael a glass of hot water and placed it on the table beside the herbs. Michael's dark flames dimly lit the already dark room. Since Azazel had a physical body, he was helping Michael by bringing the herbs needed to brew the healing potion. My lord, you've been brewing the healing potion for hours now. You should take a break, Azazel suggested to Michael, only to see Michael shaking his head. I don't need rest. But what I need is the tissue sample of patient 0. Did you get the blood from the deceased? Yes, my lord. Azazel flicked his wrist, taking out 3 vials of dark grayish blood. I also took the liberty to place spiders inside and around the castle, my lord. Someone may have disrupted the security arrays because I found no resistance. The main warehouse is empty. I assume someone cleaned the place out before the plague broke out. That someone is Eve's father. Apparently, he transported their treasury to the Immortal Council's vault. Immortal Council? This was the first time Azazel had heard about Immortal Council. Michael wasn't familiar with them either until Eve brought it up. Yeah, after someone reaches the half-immortal stage, they would be invited to join the Immortal Council. Eve's ancestor is a member of the council. Still, they got attacked? Azazel questioned Michael. He could understand how a family of someone powerful enough to be the Immortal Council's member could be attacked and almost wiped out from the map. To be honest, Michael asked Eve the same question. First, the council won't meddle in mortal affairs. Michael emphasized the word mortal like he was air quoting the word. That means if you're a council member and your family gets into trouble, you can't pitch in and rescue them. Unless the council members agree upon it. Secondly, those old bastards have lived long enough away from their families to not give a damn about their descendants. How could they do it? I don't know. But I guess, living 300-400 years in seclusion away from friends and family will do that to you, Michael explained to Azazel while throwing the herbs into the dark flames dancing atop his palm. So they have rules against saving their families? Azazel asked, knitting his brows together. I am afraid so. As far as I heard from Eve and Gaia, they are like a bunch of crooked politicians who have nothing but time on their hands. They play politics and cultivate to get higher stages. Visit. For a better user experience. But what if a member intervenes in mortal affairs? They just debate over the issue and pass their judgment on you. Which in most cases is kicking you out of the council or smite you to hell. Seems like joining the council has nothing but disadvantages, Azazel frowned as Michael chuckled. Apparently, after reaching the half-immortal stage, climbing each level would take decades. That is, if the cultivator is a genius. So the council gives you unlimited resources to cultivate. In return, you don't meddle in mortal affairs. It makes sense. Just imagine immortals and half-immortals running around the world. They will be absolute superpowers. They could enslave a kingdom if they felt like it. Having a council to put a leash on them is not a bad idea. At least it works great for me. When I wipe out some of the noble families, no one would be there to stop me. I just need to find a way to deal with the fusion stage cultivators, Michael explained his thoughts to Azazel while brewing the potions. So the council is one of the great 8 clans? No, they are like an independent group. As I said, they don't give a shit about anyone. A most one member could do for their descendants is doing small things like providing access to a vault. Azazel nodded as Michael waved his hand, putting out the dark flames. Then, Michael took the blood vials on the table and kept them before his eyes. Now I just need to find a cure before weaponizing the plague. The last thing I need is to bring down a plague upon my subordinates. One wrong move and everything will come back to bite me in my ass. Michael waved his hand as the vials disappeared from sight. When Michael finally rose from his chair, There were thousands of healing potions glistening in the darkness. The radiant blue light emitted by the healing potions brightened the room. "We shall go meet Eve and Gaia. What about this castle, my lord? Just let the rot gods have it. When I am done, there won't be anyone standing against the Voldegards." Although Michael decided to help Voldegards because of Eve, his main goal was to make Voldegards his allies. In addition, having a powerful family by his side would make establishing a name for himself in Ar much easier. "What would you have me do, my lord?" "Just stay here and monitor the situation. I am pretty sure the rot guards would return soon. Do not make any moves. Just observe and report." "Got it?" "Yes, my lord. The latest audios are on a website." After ordering Azazel to stay in the castle, Michael put the healing potion in his system storage and exited the storage through the dark door. A few hours ago, the dark cloud shrouded the sky, preventing the golden sunrays from reaching the plague-ridden kingdom Thera. Under the rambling thunderclouds, Nightmare soared through the clouds like an arrow carrying a giant carriage on his back. The carriage was large enough to contain 120 people inside, including Eve and Gaia. The Voldegards used the giant carriage to transport massive pillars to build castles and bridges. A rare race called giants pulled these carriages from one end to another. Fortunately, Nightmare grew almost 18 meters long to carry the carriage upon his back. Inside the carriage, Eve leaned against the carriage holding Gaia's hand. "I don't think I have much longer. Are we there yet?" "You tell us. Where are we going?" asked Gaia after hearing Eve's weak voice. "You will see." Eve gently brushed Jennifer's head which lay on Eve's lap. Her face had almost turned to stone-like color. In simple words, Jennifer seemed like a statue. "How did you meet Ghost?" Eve turned her gaze towards Gaia. "Just like you, I was in a helpless situation. I thought I was done for. But he changed my life. I have lost count of how many times he pulled some shit no one would imagine." "You really think he could find the cure, huh?" "I know he would. Trust me, you will recollect all these events and laugh soon." "I wish." Eve let out a deep breath as Gaia felt Nightmare slowing down. "Hey, I think we reached the place. Elia, you should come out." Gaia sensed a tinge of shock in Nightmare's voice. Therefore, Gaia squeezed Eve's hand, reassuring her before dashing out of the carriage. As soon as she exited the carriage, her eyes went so wide to the point her eyes looked like they could pop out any moment. The reason for her shock was the barren floating mountain on the horizon. The floating mountain looked like a sword. The base was the blade, and the tall pillar resembled the hilt from which an elegant streamy waterfall flowed. However, unlike the floating mountain she had seen in the Akilan realm, the sword-like floating mountain was barren and void of any man-made buildings. Visit. For the best known experience other than the waterfall, there was nothing in the floating mountain. After starting at the barren floating mountain for a few minutes, the duo resumed flying and approached the island. The closer they got, the bigger the floating mountain looked. Yet, it was far from exceeding the floating mountains in the Akilan realm by far. It took Nightmare and Gaia a few minutes to land on the barren land and put down the carriage on the ground. Considering the ground had no trees, and the clouds above them looked dark and gloomy, Gaia decided to keep them inside the carriage instead of taking them out. She didn't want the sick people to get drenched in heavy rain. "This place looks good," Nightmare creased his brows. "This place looks barren and deserted. There is nothing in the place that would make anyone say it's good." "You lack imagination, lizard," Nightmare rolled his eyes. "I don't lack imagination, but I just don't see the point of imagining anything in the place. It's not ours." Gaia grinned without telling what was going on inside her dead to Nightmare. "I'll go take a look around the place. You stay here and make sure they stay safe." Gaia didn't even wait for Nightmare's agreement as she took off from the ground to fly around the floating mountain. A few minutes later, Nightmare shrunk his size to enter the carriage. However, when he came to Eve, he noticed her skin color had slightly changed to gray. At that moment, Eve was sleeping peacefully while holding Jennifer's hand in one hand and her hammer in the other. Now that he had brought Eve and the Voldegards to a safe place, all he could do was wait for Ghost to find a cure for the plague. But something told Nightmare, Gaia and Ghost would take full advantage of the plague before curing it. After flying around the barren mountain for an hour, Gaia finally returned to the carriage. This time, she wasn't alone but brought Ghost with her. "Ghost," Nightmare welcomed Ghost with a wide grin as usual. He slowly hovered above the sick people to reach Eve. Instead of pouring the potion into Eve's mouth, Michael placed his hand on Eve's neck, which was burning hot, injecting the APD filled with 90% pure healing potion. The latest episodes are on Undersell website. While Nightmare gave the sick a healing potion, Michael woke up Eve. I am awake. Eve spoke in a weak tone. After slowly opening her eyes, she looked at Michael and Gaia. The recent memories flooded her mind. Since Michael had given her the healing potion, she slowly regained her strength. However, the plague effect prevented her from using arch energy. As a result, her cultivation dropped from the core strengthening stage to the body refining stage. She quickly looked down to see how her sister was doing. Unfortunately, even Michael's 90% pure healing potion couldn't wake her up. Eve combed Jennifer's hair and bowed down, gently placing a kiss on her forehead. We should go now to reach the Xianxia by nightfall. Eve slowly stood up, holding the wall for support. Whoa, cool your roll, Eve. You're not coming. What? Eve creased her brows immediately after hearing Michael. No offense, but in your current condition, you'll be more of a burden than help. Surprisingly, Eve dropped the hammer and let out a heavy breath. You're right. But I can't sit here and do nothing. How can I? My people are dying. I need to do something. Otherwise, I'd lose my mind. Both Michael and Gaia understood her feelings. Thus, they looked at each other for a moment before Michael turned his gaze back to Eve. I get you. What about this? You can fly atop Nightmare and be our lookout. That way, you wouldn't have to wait here wondering what we are up to. I can do that. Eve quickly bobbed her head up and down. It settled then, Gaia nodded, waving her hand as her silver robes turned completely black. She also covered her face with a cloak and a dark mask. Seeing Gaia adjusting her mask, Michael said, Don't fret. The plague isn't airborne. As far as I studied the samples, it's spreading in water and food. Really? Gaia sighed in relief. So you had any galas recently? Nightmare asked Eve. Almost all the Voldegards were infected by the plague. So if the plague wasn't airborne and spreading via water and food, Nightmare concluded that the Voldegards hosted a gala or a feast. Otherwise, they wouldn't have succumbed to the plague at the same time. The latest episodes are on Undersell website. We hosted a gala celebrating Jennifer's birthday. All the Voldegards were there, including our ancestor, the half-immortal one? Asked Michael to see Eve nodding her head. Was he sick? Gaia wondered whether the plague could affect the immortal or not. To be honest, she didn't believe it could because the half-immortals and immortals wouldn't die by normal means such as illness. No, that I know of. When Father met him before transporting our treasury to the council's vault, he wasn't sick. At least my father didn't think so. So it's not affecting anyone above fusion stage, Michael pondered, but soon, he willed the system, changing his robes. Since Michael was always adorned in completely black, the changes weren't much noticeable. He just put on the mage robes he bought from the system and covered himself. Additionally, he also wore a cat mask underneath the cloak to hide his face completely. But after covering the face with the cat mask, Michael willed the system and transformed his face completely just to be safe. Nightmare, take Eve with you and stay in cover behind the darkness and the clouds. You should wear something else to cover yourself. We don't want those fuckers to make any connection, Gaia said to Eve. She sounded more annoyed and furious than usual when she mentioned the Dark Elves. To Michael, it was evident Gaia has some kind of history with the Dark Elves. Eve nodded and closed her eyes for a moment. Gradually, her white robes turned dark, and a cloak appeared around her head, covering her face with darkness. Just like Michael, she also took out a bear mask and put it on her face. Finally, she looked at her hammer, and with a heavy heart, she flicked her wrist as the hammer slowly faded into thin air. Follow us at a safe distance. Gaia turned around. Do you know where the village is? But Gaia halted her steps when she heard Eve. I happened to come across the village once. Let's go, Ghost. Gaia didn't linger around for Eve to ask more questions. Instead, leading Michael, Gaia soared towards the sky to the point they went above the dark clouds. What's the story? You messed with the Dark Elves, didn't you? Michael asked, flying beside her. Why do you assume that? Do you think I always mess with others? I am not a racist. You are, Michael chuckled. You hate the other races. That's the definition of a racist. Visit. For a better user experience, I don't hate you, you used to. Remember you tried to kill me with a candle holder. You know what? Fuck you. I am not a racist. If you think I am a racist, Just wait till you meet the dark elves, she just snickered and sped up. Considering Michael studied with the elves in Mazeroth, he could understand the meaning behind Gaia's words. However, he didn't have the pleasure of meeting any dark elves in Mazeroth. Now that Michael thought about it, he had never met a single dark one since he came to this world. By the time they reached the outskirts of the village, night had fallen upon them, erasing any light from existence. Lightning flashed across the dark sky, brightening the sky out of its darkness for only a single moment. The rain drizzled, creating a piece of rhythmic music. The journey towards Xianxia village was peaceful as Gaia didn't say a word until Michael saw a distant forest. He shouldn't have seen the forest from above the clouds. Each tree in the forest stood at least 300 meters tall and 50 meters wide. For a few moments, Michael stopped flying and stared at the forest with giant trees. He had never seen such a forest made with trees that seemed to be touching the clouds. What is this place? Michael asked Gaia in utter shock. To his surprise, the trees were glowing like a city. When he looked closer, he could see man-made structures in the forest. The dark elves built houses inside and outside the tree above the ground. He could at least see hundreds of elegant tree houses that looked extremely cozy. Instead of runes or lamps, the houses were lit with luminescent mushrooms. These colorful mushrooms lit the 3-layered houses. The first layer glistened in blue, brightening the crowded little homes. The houses built above the first layer were more grandiloquent than the first layered houses and lit with emerald green mushrooms. Finally, the third layer on top had fewer but grand houses. All these higher-level houses were lit with radiant golden mushrooms. All these 3-layered combined looked awe-inspiring. Before resuming their travel, Michael waited for the dark clouds to spark lightning flashes. Then, he counted the time between each lightning flash. After calculating their approximate gap, Michael prepared to cast the lightning dash. Michael slowly hovered towards Gaia and held her hand. 1, 2. Michael began to count in his mind and cast the lightning dash spell as soon as he counted up to 3. Just as he cast the spell, a flash of lightning streaked across the sky, masking the golden trail left by Michael. In a few blinks of an eye, Michael reached the other end of the forest, where Michael saw a lush green field with several wooden headstones. The headstones were accompanied by saplings of different ages. Some saplings had grown almost 4 feet, while some just had foot-tall saplings growing out of the grass field. Luckily for Michael and Gaia, the graveyard had no dark elves guarding it. Dreend-At, that's the name of the dark elf who died first. Gaia, who learned the name from Eve, told Michael. Let's split up and search for the headstone, Michael instructed Gaia and descended towards the graveyard. When Michael landed in the graveyard, he saw a wooden headstone named Dremzal-Rinzudia. Although he was in a dark elf's graveyard, he didn't desecrate the place. Instead, he floated a few inches away from the cemetery, leaving no footprints. He respected the dead no matter their race. He floated above the headstones, checking the names one by one. Gaia also checked on the headstones, but unlike Michael, she left a few footsteps until she saw Michael floating above the ground. The latest episodes are on Undertale website. Ghost, we are in position. Michael heard Nightmare's voice in his head. He quickly looked up, activating the thermal vision to see a tiny ball of heat signature behind the clouds. Keep an eye out for us. We'll get out of here as soon as we find the right grave, Michael informed Nightmare and continued to look for the grave that belonged to one Dreend-At. Michael's luck finally turned up as he found the headstone named Dreend-At. Hey, found the grave. Michael quickly talked to Gaia through the earpiece as she dashed towards him. Without wasting time, Michael took out a shovel from the system storage and began digging the grave. Michael dug the grave as fast as he could and hit the casket made of red hickory in a few minutes. Tap, tap, tap. Gaia heard the shovel hitting the casket and felt excited. However, Nightmare's words halted her excitement. Look out! But before Gaia and Michael could react, an arrow flew past Gaia's face, butting through the cloak and a strand of her hair. Shit, shit, shit. Gaia quickly turned around, realizing they had been found out by the dark elves. Watch my back. Michael didn't lose his calm but increased his digging speed. He wasn't going to turn back without getting what he needed. While Michael was breaking open the casket, Gaia raised her arm towards the sky, creating a thin shield around them. Fuck, they are here, Gaia cursed, looking at the numerous dark elves flying toward them. So much for being stealthy, Gaia snickered as the arrows hit the shield but couldn't penetrate through. However, the more arrows hit the shield, the weaker the shield became. Visit. For the best known experience, hurry up. Michael initially thought of just getting a few stripes of flesh and a piece of bone as samples. However, he changed his mind after seeing the dark elves bombarding him and Gaia with arrows. What surprised him more was he didn't detect anyone in his environmental scanning. The distance between the cemetery and the forest was at least 900 meters. Still, a dark elf managed to hit Gaia with deadly accuracy. Michael wanted to see that dark elf. It was no-brainer that the dark elf who fired the shot didn't go for the kill but rather had given Gaia a warning. Holding the shield around them, Gaia could see at least hundreds of arrows soaring toward her. She used every bit of arch energy in her body, strengthening the shield. Like droplets of water hitting the puddle and creating ripples, the arrows created countless ripples on the shield when they hit. Without wasting any more time, Michael broke the casket with his bare hand and pulled out the decayed body of the dark elf burning within. He put the halfly decayed body on his shoulder and jumped out of the grave he dug. "Let's go," Michael said as Gaia slowly stepped backward, preparing to fly away from the graveyard. However, just when they were about to fly, a golden arrow shattered the shield and sent Gaia flying into Michael. Michael quickly caught Gaia in one hand while holding the decayed body in the other. Gaia gritted her teeth, holding the bubbling anger within her. Every fiber in her body told her to go berserk on the dark elves, but she managed to control her anger so they could escape the place without revealing themselves. "Make a move if you want to meet your makers." Out of the blue, a chiming bell-like voice traveled in the wind and breezed through them. The voice made Michael look upwards to see a dark elf carrying a golden bow and arrow descending from the sky. The dark elf's glistening bow brightened his sharp features. He could be described as black-skinned and dark-haired in appearance. The most distinguishing feature was his brownish skin due to living under the shade of the forest. Like all elves, he too had pointed ears almost as long as the normal elves Michael met in Mazeroth. However, his facial features were visibly sharper than those of other elves. They had a more angry brow curve, which coupled with their sharp, carnivorous teeth, gave them a rather savage and predatory appearance. As the dark elf's feet touched the ground, several others landed around Michael out of nowhere as though they sprouted from the ground. They all raised their bows taking aim at Michael and Gaia. Although they weren't muscular as the human warriors, nonetheless, every single dark elf had at least one tattoo ranging from icons of a deity to runes with actual magical enchantments. Because symbolism and tattoos played an important role in dark elven culture, tattoos and piercings were highly abundant. For example, the dark elf who appeared in the sky had an eagle tattooed on his neck as well as an arrow pointing towards the sky on his forehead, right between his brows. "You have desecrated a sacred ground," the dark elf spoke in a cold, murderous tone. Since Michael paid the system to mask his actual cultivation level, the dark elves thought he was only at the core formation stage. As a result, the dark elves felt superior and didn't bother to call for backup. The dark elf who threatened Michael and Gaia was the strongest who stood at soul refining stage level 4. "Put him down," the dark elf said, looking at the decayed body hanging on Michael's shoulder like a piece of cloth. "Visit. For the best known experience, no one has to get hurt. Just lower your bows and let us go," Gaia calmly said, but the dark elves didn't even budge. Except, their stars intensified more. "Leave," Michael growled at the dark elf before them a few meters away. However, he didn't direct the word to him. In reality, he ordered Nightmare, not the dark elves. "You will pay for your crime at the first light," the dark life coldly said without reacting to Michael's words. But, unknown to Michael, today was an auspicious day in the dark elves' calendar. Thus, they were prohibited from taking life unless facing a calamity. Since both Michael and Gaia had no weapons and didn't pose a threat to them, the dark elves had no need to kill them. But it was only temporary. As soon as the first light appeared on the horizon, the dark elves would send an arrow through their heads, ending their lives. "I'll take the body and return it in a few days," Michael calmly said to the dark elf. To be honest, Michael didn't want to fight the dark elves because he had desecrated their holy ground. They had all the right to kill them. If someone had done the same to a place Michael held holy, he would have killed them in a blink of an eye. That was why Michael didn't raise his hand to kill the dark elves. Whoosh! Instead of speaking with words, the dark elf chose to talk with an arrow. The dark elf sent an arrow straight into the ground a few inches before Michael in a blink of an eye. "I'll take that as a no." Michael put the body down, cracking his neck. "Remember, I gave you a choice." Michael slowly took a step forward. "Stay put. It won't take too long," Michael said to Gaia and turned his gaze back towards the dark elf. Michael completely ignored the other dark elves because they were all only at the core strengthening stage. Not that Michael underestimated the dark elves, but rather, he was simply too strong to be concerned. Except for the soul-refining stage dark elf who seemed to possess superior archery skills, the others didn't pose any threat to Michael. Visit. For the best known experience considering the soul-refining stage dark elf was the strongest, Michael targeted him. Seeing Michael readying for a battle, the dark elves tensed. Then, they slowly pulled back the bowstring as they were only inches away from releasing the arrows they knocked. Whoosh! Suddenly, Michael dashed at the leading dark elf as fast as a lightning bolt. His speed startled the dark elves. Still, they managed to release the arrows as Gaia quickly cast the shield spell around her. Since she only concentrated the arch energy around her, the shield formed around her was stronger than before, which covered an area several times larger. The dark elf leaped back, firing a golden arrow. But Michael simply caught the arrow in mid-air, startling the dark elf. It shouldn't have been possible for a measly core formation stage warrior. Despite his shock and the fact Michael caught the first arrow, the dark elf fired again. This time, the arrow soared towards Michael faster than the previous one, almost at the speed of a bullet. Yet the result was the same. At that time, Michael had a golden arrow in each hand. Whoosh! 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 The dark elf rapidly fired arrow after arrow, and so did the others, only to see Michael using the arrows as steps to climb higher into the air. In a few blinks of an eye, Michael reached the dark elf leader using the arrows as steps in mid-air. Except for a few, the dark elves targeted Michael. Because Michael was too close to their leader, they were forced to move around to adjust their aims. Gaia saw Michael move as swiftly as a feather in the wind, evading the arrows and fighting the dark elf. Surprisingly, the dark elf was just good in hand-to-hand combat as he was in archery. Thus, the dark elf managed to block and dodge Michael's punches. The way the dark elf dodged and blocked his punches surprised Michael. Usually, an archer wouldn't be as proficient in close combat as the dark elf. The dark elf blocked Michael's punches with the bow and arrow. If Michael lost his concentration even for a second, the dark elf would break his mask and stab him in the chest with the arrow. Visit. For a better user experience obviously, the dark elf was a good fighter, but Michael was better. The more he fought with the dark elf, the more he learned about the dark elf's fighting style. Hence, Michael was able to predict his moves before even he could make them. As a result, when the dark elf tried to block Michael's left hook, Michael quickly plunged his knee into the dark elf's gut. Arg! The dark elf groaned and missed to notice the fist coming towards him in pain. Bang! The dark elf surprised Michael again by grabbing Michael's fist. Michael did not expect the dark elf to recover so soon. Luckily, Michael still had the arrow in his hand. Without delaying, Michael pulled out his fist, stabbing the dark elf with the arrow in his other hand. He plunged the arrow's head straight into the dark elf's ribcage without cutting any of his major organs. Commander! The dark elf shouted, looking at Michael stabbing the dark elf again and again. The dark elf was lucky Michael didn't go for the kill. Instead, he rapidly stabbed the dark elf to make him bleed and weaker. Drop your bows or he'll slit his throat right now. Michael moved behind the dark elf, who had blood leaking out of his side, and put the bloody arrow against the dark elf's throat. You should listen to him, Gaia coldly snarled at the dark elves. Then, seeing their commander's life in danger, the dark elves hesitated but eventually lowered their bows. You have become our enemy, the dark elf whispered, gritting his teeth. It won't take long to slit your throat and kill your friends. Know that I didn't want to kill you but save you. You will understand soon enough, Michael whispered into the dark elf's ear as the dark elves stared at him with eyes full of anger and murderous intent. If stares could kill a person, Michael would have died several times by now. The latest episodes are on Undertale website. Seeing the dark elves dropping their bows, Gaia snickered behind her mask. It wouldn't be an understatement to say that Gaia hated the dark elves. As a matter of fact, almost all the races hated the dark elves, even the elves. To put it bluntly, the dark elves were racist, arrogant, and the most intolerable race in the whole world. No matter what one would say about the dark elves, they were one united race. Each dark elf was loyal and devoted to the well-being of their race. A dark elf would literally for another dark elf no matter whether they were related or not. That was the reason they chose to lower their weapons when they saw Michael threatening the life of their commander. The Dark Elves would rather let Michael escape than endanger their commander's life. Michael noticed the concern in their eyes and their loyalty towards the Dark Elf in his hold. "If I don't do this, your entire city would be destroyed by the plague," Michael whispered into his ears again before turning his gaze toward Gaia. "Take the body." Gaia didn't need to be told twice as she quickly grabbed the decayed body and flew to his side. "Do not follow us. I will return the body to you in a few days," Michael said to the Dark Elves. "Meanwhile, don't drink water without purifying it," Michael whispered to the Dark Elf. He kinda liked the Dark Elf and wished he could make the Dark Elf his subordinate. To do that, the Dark Elf needed to be alive. That was the only reason Michael advised the Dark Elf so they wouldn't get sick. "What the hell are you talking about?" the Dark Elf growled. "The plague. I am the only one who could find a cure and stop the plague before it destroys your beloved Ar." The moment Michael uttered the last word, he pushed down the Dark Elf with enough force to send him crashing onto some of the Dark Elves beneath him. Without wasting a second, Michael tossed a flashbang onto the ground and shot into the sky with Gaia. "Get him!" The Dark Elf gritted his teeth, holding his rib cage. Despite the pain and blood, he ordered his underlings to catch Michael. However, by the time the Dark Elves reached the sky where they saw Michael disappear, Michael teleported to Eve's floating mountain. On the island, Eve and Nightmare waited outside the carriage for Michael and Gaia. "Where are they?" Eve strolled back and forth with the hammer tightly clenched. But suddenly, she saw Michael and Gaia appear beside Nightmare. "Did you get the body?" Eve asked before even she noticed the decayed body on Michael's shoulder. Instead of answering, Michael just glanced at the body. Visit. For a better user experience, Elia, set up my workbench here. I need a sharp knife, clean cloth, and a barrel of water, Michael instructed Gaia, removing the mask off of his face. "System, scan the body and give me that formula. As you wish." He heard the system's voice in his head followed by an unearthly whistling sound. The system began to scan the system while Gaia was setting up a long oak table and the chair which made his workbench. On the other hand, Nightmare flew out to the waterfall to get fresh water as Michael asked. The only thing that remained was the clean cloth and Eve provided it from her space ring. By the time Gaia finished setting up the workbench, the system completed the scanning. Patent 0 identified. The system requires 200,000 badass points to create a formula for the plague. Take it. Michael didn't even think for a second before agreeing to the system. Compared to the gold coins he would make after finding the cure, the 200,000 badass points were nothing. The only downside was after paying the system, his badass points were almost depleted. At that moment, he only had 120,000 badass points. Because of the upcoming Aqua auction, he was unable to turn the gold coins into badass points. The system requires a tissue sample and bone marrow from the patient 0. The system asked Michael, "Place the body here," Michael said to Gaia. Gaia gently placed the decayed body on the table as Eve covered her nose to stop breathing the strong stench coming from the body. But unlike Eve, Michael showed no signs of disgust on his face. Instead, he just took the jade dagger from Gaia's hand and started carving the body around its chest. Eve saw Ghost cut a chunk of decayed grayish flesh from the body and then turn the body upside down. "Wait a minute." Suddenly, Gaia stepped closer to the body and moved her head closer to the Buddha's neck. Eve and Michael looked closer at where Gaia was pointing and was surprised to see a bite mark. The bite mark had 2 deep holes an inch away from one another. It was too similar to a vampire bite. "Do you think he was bitten by a vampire?" Eve asked after several minutes of silence. "It's possible," Michael frowned. Visit. For a better user experience, what possible? It's definitely a vampire bite. I had a feeling that this plague is somehow connected to the vampires. It makes sense. If you want to bring down the cultivators, you have to bring down Ar. If I am right, Thera was only a testing ground. If we don't do something, soon the plague would spread throughout the continent. Gaia's words put a deep frown on Eve's face. Ar could win wars against armies, but no one was equipped to win against the plague. Even the most talented scholars and healers in Empress Court failed to find a cure for the plague until now. They made no progress. A single person could spread the plague and destroy a powerful kingdom without waging war. The mere thought of it shook Eve to the core. "Then it's a good thing you have me." Michael drew a line along the spinal cord with the jade dagger before sending a needle into the spinal cord itself. Whoosh! As Michael was extracting the bone marrow, Nightmare landed beside them with a barrel in his hands. "Hey, race your fresh water. Put it here," Gaia instructed the Nightmare as Nightmare walked towards the bench and placed the barrel beside the table. That's gross. Nightmare rolled his eyes seeing the needle getting filled with a thick grayish liquid. How long will it take? Eve couldn't help but ask Michael. She had lost so many closest family members in the last couple of weeks and couldn't bear the thought of losing her father, mother, and sister. But she lacked the knowledge or ability to find a cure. Deep down she knew she didn't have a way to save her family. That was the reason she drowned herself in battle. Ghost was the last ray of hope she had. System. Instead of answering Eve, Michael put the flesh and the needle into his system storage. Then he summoned the system. Analyzing the samples, creating a formula, converting the formula into a potion recipe. Michael waited for the system to finish creating the formula patiently even though time was of the essence. Just give him some time, Gaia said to Eve, noticing Ghost's silence. Visit. For a better user experience for almost 10 minutes, only silence filled the lonely mountain and they heard nothing but the melody of the waterfall. Cure found. Imparting the recipe into the host's brain. Finally, the system etched the recipe into Michael's brain in the form of a potion recipe. He was suddenly flooded with new knowledge about the plague and a potion to cure the plague. With his new potion, he could not cure the sick but also prevent anyone from getting infected in the future. But unfortunately, his knowledge about the plague also came bearing a piece of bad news. According to Jennifer's condition, she didn't have much longer to live. At most, she had 2 days with the constant supply of healing potion. Eve. When Michael finally turned his gaze towards Eve, her heart almost skipped a beat. She shivered, waiting for his next words. I have the cure but we need to find the ingredients fast. Since time was of the essence, Michael even tried to buy the ingredients from the system store but the system required 600,000 badass points. Even if he took along, he wouldn't get 600,000 badass points. Hence, the only way to get the ingredients was to buy them somewhere. But hearing Michael's words, Eve's face brightened and at last, a relieved smile appeared on her face. Anything. Bunyip bone, Hydra hook, Dryad lock, Behemoth eye, Naga scale, Walperdinger antler, and plague barberry. You don't have any of these back in the castle. We need to buy them somewhere and we need them fast. Your sister has only 2 days. Eve shuddered, hearing his last words. In a blink of an eye, her mind was flooded with the sweet memories she had with her little sister since they were little. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go to the Aqua Palace and buy these. I am pretty sure they have everything you need. Nightmare always tried to stay positive but Gaia shook her head sighing. Aqua Palace is in Kingdom Sil Allery, not in Thera. We will go to Sil Allery. I don't give a damn about the lockdown. I will kill anyone who stands in my way, Eve said with a stern dominating voice despite her condition. However, Gaia knew that the lockdown wasn't the only obstacle they had. Visit. For a better user experience, it would take at least 2 days to reach Sil Allery. But I have a way and you might not like it. Gaia paused for a few moments before shocking Eve with her words. The Rot Guards have a portal to get to Sil Allery. How did you know that? Eve asked, surprised by Gaia's words. She grew up in Ysirius but never heard House Rotguard possessing a portal to reach Sil Allery. She wondered how the heck Elia knew this. I happen to travel a lot, Gaia simply shrugged. Although Eve could tell she was lying, she didn't poke into the matter deeply because she had no need to. But I don't think the Rot Guards will welcome us with open arms. Even Nightmare couldn't stay positive after hearing Gaia's plan. He was optimistic but not naive. Eve, do you remember Elia asked how ruthless you would be to save your family? Eve nodded at Michael. I am asking you again. How far would you go to save your family? As far as I have to. Would you kill the Rot Guards? Yes. I will wipe out them in a heartbeat. Michael did not even finish his question when Eve stomped the ground and roared. Good. Michael simply nodded before turning his gaze back at the body. He then cut another piece of flesh and a strand of gray hair from the head. Michael submerged the flesh and the strand of hair into the barrel Nightmare brought. The 3 of them stared at Michael without any clues of what he was doing. Under their curious gazes, Michael washed the flesh and the hair. Eve, go give your sister the healing potion, Michael told Eve as she nodded and went inside the carriage. When she disappeared from their sight, Michael quickly willed the system to teleport to Eve's castle. After Michael vanished into thin air, Nightmare came to Gaia's side. Are you thinking what I am thinking? Nightmare asked. Yep. He is doing it, Gaia's face had a devilish grin, unlike Nightmare, who seemed a bit worried. A few minutes later, Michael appeared again before the oak table. With a flick of his wrist, he took out a bunch of ingredients from the system storage. As Michael conjured his alchemy flames which burned with emerald green flames, Gaia and Nightmare approached him. Visit. For a better user experience. So you're weaponizing the plague? Asked Gaia, looking over Michael's shoulder. Do you see another way to infiltrate the house rot guards and use their portal? Michael didn't look at Gaia but focused on refining the ingredients. I just want to make sure it wouldn't come back to bite us in the butt. It won't. When I finish modifying the plague, it will only affect the soul refiners and fusion stage cultivators, Michael explained while extracting the essence from the herbs. Initially, Michael thought of making the plague airborne and affecting all the cultivators. They hadn't taken the vaccine he was about to create. However, the modified strain of plague would be extremely unstable and prone to mutate. Moreover, Michael did not want to start a pandemic that he wouldn't be able to control. Since Michael had reached the fusion stage, he did not need to kill the weaker cultivators with the plague. Instead, Michael decided to modify the plague strain with the help of the system to only affect fusion and soul refining stage cultivators. This new modified strain wouldn't mutate and was easily fused with the fear toxin. That's good. How does it work anyways? Nightmare asked Michael. Once you breathe in the newly enhanced fear toxin, you will experience coughing, vomiting blood, and losing control over your celestial and arch energy. Boom, in a couple of minutes, you are nothing but a commoner. I assume you will modify our masks too? Asked Gaia. Since they hadn't taken the cure yet, the modified fear toxin was dangerous to them. Therefore, Michael had to buy 3 masks from the system and modify them. Luckily, it was a simple task for Michael as he was a 5-star inventor and possessed all the necessary parts. But first, Michael needed to finish modifying the plague. At that moment, black essence beads floated about the green flames. These beads radiated an ominous smoke as Michael slowly merged them together. After which, Michael sent the flesh and the strand of hair into the fire and burnt them. When the flesh and hair burnt in the fire, Gaia and Nightmare closed their mouth and nose with their hands. The strong scent was nauseating to the point Gaia felt like throwing up. Soon, a crimson-red smoke gradually emerged from the green flame and merged with a dark ball of essence above the flame. The two mixed together to form a mysterious smoking goo that swam in the air like a fish. Gaia and Nightmare sighed in relief, thinking he had finished, but Michael had only completed half the process. Go stall Eve, Michael told Nightmare as the dragon nodded, shrunk its size, and walked towards the carriage. Meanwhile, Michael rolled up his sleeves, revealing the dark bracelet around his right wrist. Remove it, Michael asked Gaia to remove the bracelet as he controlled the plague goo with his other hand. Instead, Gaia gently tapped the bracelet and lifted it from his wrist. Screech. The latest episodes are on the website. When Michael willed the APD to come off his wrist, the bracelet split in the middle, and the needles inside Michael's wrist retracted. After Gaia removed the APD, Michael moved the dark goo above the flame. But this time, the fire turned from jade green to black. The heat produced by the dark flames immediately vaporized the black goo as Michael surrounded the vapor with his arch energy and pulled it into a large vial. As soon as the dark vapor entered the vial, Michael closed it with the cork. Now, I have to mix it with the fear toxin. Michael took out another vial with a gray liquid inside. With utmost caution, Michael pulled out the liquid through a syringe and injected the liquid into the plague vial through the cork. To his surprise, when the vapor and liquid made contact, it sparks a purple flame. The flame burnt brightly for a few moments until finally condensed into a dark dusty element. This will be our weapon for ultimate domination, Michael devilishly grinned, looking at the dark vial in his hand. So, have you given any thought to mixing the blood tonic into the cure? I thought you would never ask. Unfortunately, the cure won't work with the blood tonic mixed in. It's only a setback though. I will find a better cure in the future which could be mixed with the blood tonic. Michael really tried to squeeze the blood tonic into the cure, but the formula simply didn't allow it. The cure had to be in its purest form. Otherwise, it wouldn't heal the infected and prevent one from getting infected. We would have been gods if it worked, Gaia sighed. Yeah. Michael opened the compartment connected to the needles in APD and put the one in his hand inside. You can't use the fear toxin while you are in your ghost persona. Gaia was indeed right. If Eve noticed the effects of the fear toxin and saw the Dark Lord using it by any chance, She could make the connection between Ghost and the Dark Lord. Hence, Michael quickly brewed another modified plague and enclosed it in vials without mixing with the Far toxin. He made several vials and handed over a few of them to Gaia before taking out the 3 black masks from the system storage. They were in no shape or form but plain black respirator masks. A few minutes later, Nightmare walked out of the carriage with Eve. He couldn't stall Eve any longer. But fortunately, Michael finished everything, including modifying the masks to filter the plague. Gaia noticed a healing potion in Eve's hand. Before speaking a word, Eve opened up the vial and emptied the potion into her mouth. "I am ready," Eve said after emptying the vial. "You have a plan to wipe them out?" "I have to tell you, they have 4 fusion stage protectors. The latest Audis are on website. The more the better," Michael grinned, thinking about the experience points he would get by killing fusion stage cultivators. Now that Michael had given it a thought, it would be his first time killing a fusion stage cultivator. He wondered how many experience and badass points as a reward. With the modified plague in his hand, Michael didn't even fear the fusion stage cultivators. Finally, after so long, he felt like he was in control of every part of the game. "Follow my lead, and House Rotgard will cease to exist when the sun rise." Michael put on the mask as his voice changed to something beastly. Gaia put on the mask and threw the other one at Eve. "Nightmare, stay here and make sure nothing happens to them. Don't worry about them." "I got this," Nightmare said with absolute confidence. Soon, he grew to his full size, casting a shadow upon the trio, making them look puny in front of Nightmare. "Let's go." With a nod, Michael shot out towards the sky and disappeared into the night sky, leaving Nightmare behind. Michael let Gaia take the lead as he flew closer to Eve in case she lost the connection with the archenergy again. Michael was not completely optimistic about bringing Eve with him, but knowing her, there was no way she would back down and let them go alone. If everything went according to Michael's plan, Eve wouldn't have to raise a finger against the Rotguards. "Hey Eve, how much do you think I can make by selling the cure?" Eve was surprised by his sudden question. "Millions." Eve's heart was heavy. Although she knew Ghost wouldn't take coins from them for the cure, she hated to be a freeloader. No matter what, Eve wanted to repay for everything he did somehow. "Hey Eve, if you're worried about getting the cure for free, don't. I'm not giving it to you for free. I want Voldegards to be my allies and help set up my majestic empire in our. Anything for you, my friend." Eve placed his hand on his shoulder and revealed an alluring smile that hid the immense sorrow in her heart. "And thank you. The latest Audis are on an website." "Hey, friends don't say thanks. I am pretty sure you will get to save my ass once or twice in the future." Michael patted Eve on the back and continued their journey towards Yesrius to wipe out the Rotguards. A few days ago, Ethan and Imelda followed Diana into her room in the Winston Manor. "Diane, stop!" Imelda called out to stop Diana, who strolled into her room, blasting the door open. After she entered, Ethan quickly closed the door behind her. Despite Imelda calling her repeatedly, Diana didn't even turn around but rushed into the room. After entering the room, Diana walked straight to the book rack beside the black bed. "Diane, please listen to us." Ethan slowly approached Diana as she pulled out a crimson-red book from the neatly stacked books on the rack. As soon as she pulled out the book, a golden light enveloped Diana before the orange curtains were replaced by dark curtains, turning the room dark. But the chandelier hanging down the ceiling lit the room as Imelda saw the book's rack slowly moving aside. Imelda was startled to see the dark robes, black swords, and daggers on the wall behind the book rack. A cold chill ran down her spine, looking at the wall because it reminded her of the memories Imelda desperately tried to forget. "Diane, just stop and think about this. You cannot go up against the Guardians." Ethan tried to stop Diana. But no matter how many times Ethan called her, Diana simply didn't bother to listen to him. Instead, she waved her hand as her golden robes turned dark. The next moment, the dark robes on the wall slowly floated to Diana. You still have them." Imelda stuttered while Diana put on the robes and the dark black long coat over the robes. She was about to take the 2 black swords when Ethan placed his hand on Diana's shoulder. "Listen to us, Diane. Please." "I am done listening." Ethan had never heard a colder voice than Diana's. But to be honest, it frightened him. But still, Ethan didn't back down as he turned her around using his strength because, despite her look, she was a hell of a lot stronger than him. When she finally turned around, her cold gaze swept across Ethan, pushing him a few meters away from her. "Diana, what's all this?" I thought you put that life behind you, Imelda stuttered. Visit. For a better user experience, Diana. I know how you feel. I am furious too. But we cannot let our anger blind our judgment. We cannot go against the Guardians. If the Sky Hall knew you're back into cultivation, they would imprison you. In the worst case, they would. Ethan couldn't finish his sentence, saying they would kill her. They caged our daughter. They tortured her. Diana clenched her fist, speaking each word with dead coldness. Everything was orchestrated by the Guardians so they could get something they wanted. It's the vampires who kidnapped Sabi. Imelda swallowed the fear in her heart to utter these words. They were just an arrow. The one who fired the arrow was the Guardians, Ethan growled. It was true that Ethan didn't want Diana to go against the Guardian. However, it didn't mean he wasn't furious. Only if Ethan had the power, would he have destroyed the Guardians by now. Since it wasn't the case, he had to stop Diana from making any decision they would all regret later. Get out of my way, Ethan. I am constantly failing to protect my children, and I am sick of it. Diana turned around and grabbed the two swords from the wall. Imelda shivered to see the black swords in Diana's hands. Unlike Ethan and Diana, only she knew what really happened 21 years ago in the forest. She knew what the Sky Hall was capable of. Granted, Imelda felt the same anger as Ethan and Diana after she heard what happened to Sabrina. But her fear of Sky Hall overshadowed her anger towards the vampires and the Guardian Guild. For the first time, Imelda felt grateful toward Ghost. If it wasn't for him, Sabrina would have died twice. Although Sabrina told everything that happened to her except the truth about Ghost being the Dark Lord, the three of them knew Ghost was the Dark Lord. You didn't fail them, Diana. I did. As a father, as a husband, I failed. Ethan sighed, swallowing the lump in his throat formed due to grief and helplessness. Both of you, please, Imelda stepped forward. Let's talk this through. Diana, you're not Harriet Hunt anymore. She died in our. Forget about Sky Hall. If the Hunt family knew you are alive, they would be at our doorstep the next moment. However, Diana didn't bother to pay attention to Imelda because anger consumed her mind and heart. Think about Noah and Rowena. If you go against the Guardians, our secret will be exposed. What do you think will happen next? Ethan asked Diana. You agreed when we told Sabrina not to say a word about anything to Rowena and Noah. Please, Diana, stop. Imelda begged Diana. Just like she said, the three of them told Sabrina not to reveal anything that happened to her to Rowena or Noah. They believed if Sabrina told them, Noah would renounce the Guardians and start a battle against them, which would ultimately result in Rowena stepping in. If Rowena stepped in, the Sky Hall would investigate the matter, and as a result, Ghost's identity would be exposed. It could only lead to one thing, the destruction of the Winstons. To put it bluntly, Sabira was the first domino in the long chain of dominoes. The moment she revealed her story, the chain of events would consume everything into a big black hole of war. That was why Imelda and Ethan made her promise not to tell anyone about anything, especially Rowena and Noah. Visit. For the best known experience by making her promise, however, they destroyed Michael's plot to set Noah against the Guardians. You are missing the point, finally. Diana's hair turned from striking golden to raven black. I am not going against the Guardians. I am going against the elf who orchestrated everything, as she said. Diana took a step forward, unleashing powerful energy that forced Ethan and Imelda a few steps back. Seeing Diana in black hair and dark robes, Imelda shivered from head to toe. Once upon a time, an entire continent feared her. Then, after 2 decades, what Imelda thought she buried returned alive to haunt her. Remember the words you said before leaving our Ethan. You made a promise to always stand by my side. Do not break that promise now. Step aside, Diana coldly said as Ethan saw a blue light flickering in her eyes. Diana, please. Boom. Ethan tried to change her mind, but he was sent crashing onto the wall behind by a strong gust of wind. I am sick of you two trying to change my mind. Diana roared before stomping the ground with enough force to shake the entire room. The wall crumbled, and cracks formed where Ethan hit before falling down. Afterward, Ethan couldn't get to his feet. Not because Ethan was hurt physically but because he was hurt mentally. This was the first time Diana had cast a spell on him in a long time. It was equal to her raising her hand against Ethan. Ethan! Imelda quickly rushed to Ethan to lift him up while Diana walked towards the window and opened them with a wave of her hand. Diana! Imelda shouted, but it was too late as Diana flew out the window. However, before her figure disappeared, Sabrina opened the door. Unfortunately for Diana, Sabrina saw her figure. For a few moments, Sabrina just stared at the open windows. Only then did she notice Ethan on the ground. Visit. For a better user experience, father. Sabrina dashed at Ethan and quickly helped him up. What happened? Was that mother? No. Imelda immediately shrieked, denying the truth. Ethan, on the other hand, just remained in silence. He was too shocked to focus on anything. Even after getting blasted by Diana, Ethan didn't feel any anger toward Diana. Instead, he blamed himself for being weak and powerless to help her. Noah had tried to make Ethan stronger by making him break through to the core strengthening stage. Ethan had been stuck in core formation level 10 for 7 years now. But no matter how many potions Noah gave him, he simply couldn't destroy the bottleneck. What Noah had no idea that Sky Hall placed a curse on Ethan. He was to stay at the core formation level until he died. Ethan was Sky Hall's backup plan to control Harriet. However, when Harriet fought the angels and the forbidden spell for 30 days, another group of elders tortured Ethan and placed several curses on his soul. The only difference between Diana and Ethan was that at least Imelda was there with Diana. Then where is she? What happened to father? Sabrina brushed away the dust off Ethan's robes and corrected his collar. Go to your room, Sabi. As soon as Sabrina began to question them, Imelda tried to push Sabrina out of the room, but Sabrina didn't even budge an inch. Imelda did not want to reveal the truth about Diana to Sabrina or to anyone. She would rather die than reveal Diana's secret. Stop treating me like a child, auntie. I want to know the truth. I told you everything. Xianxia and I deserve to be treated with the same respect. Sabrina raised her voice, shocking both of them and snapping Ethan out of the shock. That was mother. It was. Ethan took a deep breath and answered Sabrina. Ethan. Imelda quickly tried to stop Ethan, but he shook his head. He didn't want to hide Diana's identity from Sabrina. After all, Sabrina told them the truth, and Ethan wanted Sabrina to know the truth about her mother. The question in his mind was whether to let Noah and Rowena know the truth as well or not. She deserves to know, Imelda, Ethan said to Imelda and turned his gaze toward Sabrina. Your mother Diana is not always Diana. Her real name was Harriet Hunt. What? Sabrina's heart skipped a beat as she began to shiver. Visit. For a better user experience, Harriet Hunt. Sabrina's mind completely went back, recalling the stories she heard and lessons she learned from Holy Trident Academy. Harriet Hunt was a myth. A legend. A war goddess who walked among mortals. To hear Harriet Hunt was her mother and lived as Diana, Sabrina's mind couldn't process the shocking news. What have you done, Ethan? Tears gushed out of Imelda's eyes as she collapsed to the ground. You serious? A city previously buzzing with people now seemed deserted. The beautifully complex dress was empty, void of any people. It was a clear indication of how hard the plague hit Ysirius. Unfortunately, the rest of the kingdom Thera wasn't in a better condition either, as the plague had already infected 95% of the kingdom. Soon the entire kingdom would be placed under lockdown by order of the Empress. As they flew under the drizzling dark clouds, Michael, Eve, and Gaia reached Ysirius borders that separated Kingdom Thera from the ocean. The sea view castle of House Rotgard stood mightily sprawling with guards. Not a single place was left unguarded, and despite the massive size of the grayish castle, House Rotgard deployed enough guards to prevent anyone from entering the castle. The mighty castle was the most mediocre one Michael had ever seen. It was a square castle with one tower accompanied by 4 mini-square towers in each corner. Each of the towers had 4 archers looking in all directions. In addition to the archers, 2 groups of soldiers walked back and forth on top of each wall. It wouldn't be easier to avoid the archers, soldiers, trebuchets, giant crossbows, and magical arrays placed around the castle without getting detected. So, using the dark clouds as their cover, the trio scanned the castle for weak points. Yet as far as they could see from above, the walls contained no holes. The soldiers patrolled the walls and the compound with full vigilance, and the magical arrays protected the castle from an intruder entering the castle through the tallest tower. The only way to enter the castle seemed to be the main gate, which was flanked by 2 groups of soldiers led by one soul refining stage cultivator in magenta robes, symbolizing the high status among the rot guards. No one could get inside or outside without the soul refiner's knowledge. This is troublesome, Gaia used her senses to see the translucent shield covering the entire castle. Normally, people would place additional runes to keep the arrays hidden, but the rot guards didn't bother to. Hence, the three of them could see the arrays and runes engraved on the castle walls from above. For naked eyes, the castle looked no different than any building, but to Michael, the castle almost looked like a Christmas tree with decorations thanks to the glowing runes. "We can go all out if you think you can take them out," Gaia said to Michael, "or I can summon spectral wasps to carry the potions into the castle undetected." Gaia's second option drew Eve's attention. Eve was oblivious to the fact Michael had weaponized the plague and contained it in several vials as potions. The problem was, however, how to send the vials into the castle without exposing the drones, as Michael planned to send the drones carrying the plague vials. That's where Gaia came in. The spectral wasps were just a cover-up to hide the drones and spiders from Eve's eyes. "What potions?" "You will see," Michael calmly said. Although Michael had told Eve about using the plague against her enemies, he still hadn't revealed he finished weaponizing the plague. So instead of explaining, Michael wanted Eve to witness the plague in action. Besides, Eve wouldn't complain about his methods after he helped her family to get back on its feet. The latest episodes are on under the website. Spectral wasps. Gaia pretended to cast the SPLL by waving her hand and creating dim balls of light, just bright enough to hide the drones within. Hovering beside Gaia and Michael, Eve saw the several orbs of golden lights materializing in the air before them. Under her curious gaze, the balls slowly started to float towards the castle under cover of dark clouds. "You sure those won't get detected by the arrays?" Eve asked Gaia. "We will find out soon enough." Gaia didn't show any signs of concern or anxiety on her face because she was calm. Compared to everything Michael and her went through, wiping out a family seemed like a chilling vacation to her. The golden balls gradually lost their glow and disappeared from Eve's eyes. But her full focus was on the thin blue layer of light enveloping the castle. Unlike Eve, Michael could see the drones flying through the thin light layer without triggering the arrays. If it were before Eladir, the arrays would have detected the drones despite having been built with junk metal. Now all of Michael's drones and spiders had Eladir's special cloaking runes that prevented almost 98% of the arrays from detecting them. While piloting the drones via his mind, Michael carefully paid attention to the video feed transmitted by the drone camera to his mind. The drones may have fooled the arrays, but they were still visible to the naked eyes, especially the vials they were carrying atop them. So any archer or a soldier could still see them and shot them down from the air. Hence, Michael carefully piloted the drones to the center tower's highest point. No problem until now. Gaia felt the excitement coursing through her veins. If the drones got detected, which was highly unlikely, she could go rampage on the rot guards. Otherwise, she could walk through the main gate and kill the plague-stricken rot guards, which would be as easy as killing insects. Either way, the fate of the rot guards was sealed. She almost felt pity for the rot guards but didn't show her emotions to Eve. To be honest, it was quite common in Ar. Like any other continent, Ar wasn't an exception to the rule of killing or being killed. If you were not strong enough and you were in someone's way of getting more powerful, you were as good as dead in Ar. The Voldegards put survival over helping others, which led them to be almost exterminated by the rot guards. However, Gaia admired how rot guards handled themselves. As soon as the plague hit Thera, rot guards closed their compound to anyone and ordered everyone to stay put except for a few groups. They completely cut out any ties from the outside, including drinking, eating, or having physical contact with others. Compared to Voldegards, they certainly had better scholars who gave proper advice and safeguarded the rot guards. "You have a plan to start over?" Putting the Voldegards back on their feet won't be easy. At the same time, Michael was busy piloting the drones into the castle undetected. Gaia started a conversation about the future of the Voldegards. Visit. For a better user experience, I'd rather let my father take of it. He has been leading us for decades and it won't change anytime soon. I only wish we can cure him sooner. Eve was a great warrior, and Michael could vouch for that. However, her leadership qualities were still hidden. No matter how good of a friend Eve was to Michael, he wouldn't recommend handing over House Voldegard to Eve without knowing how good of a leader she was. Since Michael planned to make House Voldegard his ally, he wanted someone great to lead the house to a golden age. But Michael really doubted whether Eve's father was up to the task. Although the Voldegards didn't get weaker, they didn't get stronger either under his leadership. I know it's not a good time to talk about the future. But give some thought to it. The path ahead of you won't get easier. Gaia placed her hand on Eve's shoulder to console her.
I will. Eve nodded as she knew Gaia was right and just looking after her.
Sooner or later, Eve knew she had to deal with the future of House Voldegard. However, she just wanted to focus on curing them before paying attention to other matters. On the other hand, the drones entered the castle through the open windows in the tower. He could clearly see the brightly lit throne hall directly beneath the tower. At that moment, a man wearing crimson-red robes and a crown with a large rub on the front sat on a lavish throne decorated with gold and gems. The man on the throne was undoubtedly the Lord of House Rotgard, Ivan Rotgard.
He stared at the 4 protectors of the house who were seated on their own thrones facing the Ivan and Igor on his one knee.
There is no point in wasting resources on House Voldegard anymore, Uncle Ivan.
Igor received cold death stares from the gray-haired protectors.
Still, Igor tried to convince the House Lord to focus on capturing House Voldegard's business and stream of revenues rather than trying to kill all the Voldegards as the protectors suggested. For Igor, fighting Voldegards was nothing but a waste of resources. He would rather accumulate power, capture more revenue streams, and make allies than wage war against all their enemies.
Only if your father was here to hear those words. A bald old man with a goatee snickered at Igor.
My father fought the Voldegards all his life. What did he get in return?
Death.
Igor didn't stay silent but talked back with a cold tone. All the more reason to wipe the Voldegards off the world. You should have died like your father on the battlefield instead of running away from a young fusion stage warrior. Another elder heir quoted the words young fusion stage to ridicule Igor. But unfortunately, no one believed Igor and his men. One couldn't blame the elders either because it was extremely rare to see a teenage fusion stage cultivator, as Igor told them. Visit. For the best known experience. What did you say?
Igor raised his voice and was about to dash at the old man when Ivan roared.
Silence. Ivan shouted echoed through the empty throne hall as his voice shook the hall like an earthquake. Every single person who has Voldegard in their name must die. After the echoes stopped, Ivan coldly declared. House Voldegard shall cease to exist before the first light. Protectors. Ivan turned his cold gaze towards the 4 elders flanking Igor. See to their destruction. No more excuses. What about their allies? An elder who ridiculed Igor asked Ivan with a murderous grin on his face. Ally of the Voldegards are our enemies.
Destruction is what I would grant them, Uncle Ivan.
Listen to me, too much power vacuum will open our city to new powers, powers we may not be able to handle. You dare to question your house lord?
An elder slammed his throne and rose to attack Igor, but a single glance from Ivan stopped the elder from doing so.
You are not the house lord, Igor. The only reason I tolerate you is you're my nephew. But my tolerance has its limits. Despite being blood relatives, Ivan shared no love for Igor, and it was a known truth to everyone in House Rotgard. As a matter of fact, Igor hated Ivan for leading House Rotgard on a war path, while Ivan hated Igor for being his nephew. Every time Ivan looked at Igor, Igor reminded him of his elder brother, whom Ivan hated to the core. The latest episodes are on Undertale website. Only if his ancestor hated Igor as much as he did, he could have killed Igor long ago while Igor was studying in Sil Allery. Michael witnessed everything happening in the throne hall through the drone. Igor surprised Michael with his words. Unlike the old cahoots, Igor actually wanted to strengthen House Rotgard through other means than waging war against the other houses. I have a limit too, Lord. When Ivan was about to rise from the throne, Igor said, gritting his teeth. A limit for my patience. How dare you? One of the elders growled at Igor only to be ignored by the latter. I wish I have taken the Empress' offer to join her clan. Igor snickered as Ivan's eyes reddened in pure hatred for Igor. While they were busy quarreling, they didn't notice the change in the air. Unknowing to them, they were breathing the fear toxin mixed with the plague. Michael felt lucky to get all the protectors and the House Lord under the same roof. It made poisoning them with the fear toxin a much easier task. Otherwise, he would have had to find each fusion stage cultivator and poison them individually. His only regret was Igor. Michael couldn't help feeling Igor would have made a fine asset in his growing army. Unlike most people in the world, the young man seemed to possess intelligence and rational thinking. It was a pity Igor was getting infected as they spoke. The only reason you stand before me is our ancestor care for Iranian, Ivan spoke coldly. Iranian was Igor's late father, and when Igor heard his name from Ivan's mouth, Igor felt his anger bubbling deep within him. Because of their old ways and hatred for Voldegards, Igor lost all his family. Deep down, Igor hated Ivan and the Protectors more than he hated the Voldegards. I hope our ancestor will be delighted to see House Rotgard faces several new threats in a few years. But, suppose you think destroying Voldegards would make your lives easier. In that case, you guys are in for a shitty surprise. Igor sneered and stood up before Ivan.
He was about to turn around and leave when Igor sensed the change in his body as well as in the air.
Suddenly, an elder stumbled down from his chair.
"Protector Xian," another elder shouted and reached out for the fallen comrade only to stumble down like the other.
Soon, the 4 protectors fell to the ground, vomiting blood.
What the fuck is happening to me?
Igor was not in a better condition as his legs gave up. As a result, Igor collapsed down. His vision turned blurry. Nonetheless, Igor rubbed his eyes, hoping it would clear his vision. While Igor tried to regain his strength, he heard the elders finally stop throwing up blood. A few seconds later, the protectors returned to their feet. With his blurry vision, Igor looked up to see Ivan rising from his throne and wiping the blood coming off his mouth. Visit. For a better user experience, since Ivan was stronger than everyone in the hall, the fear toxin affected him less. Are we infected? No shit, Igor coughed, closing his mouth. When he took his hand off his mouth, he saw the blood sprinkles on his palm. You must have gotten from the Voldegards. It's you. You sealed us our fate. You fool. You doomed us all. The protectors immediately blamed Igor and yelled at him. We must contact our ancestor before we succumb to the plague. Ivan, however, remained calm, unlike the rest. Roar!
Suddenly an ear-piercing shriek echoed through the hall. Intruder!
Another loud shout followed the shriek, sending shivers down their spines. We are under attack. Igor could hear someone shouting outside.
As soon as they heard the alarm, soldiers of House Rotgard rushed into the hall, including the 2 soul-refining stage guards who guarded the main gate.
No, you idiots. Get out of here. Igor shouted at the soldiers who rushed into the hall to protect their lords.
However, they were startled to hear Igor's orders.
We all be infected if we stay together like this. Igor was right, but as usual, no one listened to him. So instead, they surrounded Ivan and the protectors. Raise the gates. No one is getting in or outside.
I want the intruder's head on the plate before the first light. Ivan barked an order before turning around to leave the throne hall.
Visit. For a better user experience, he was in quite a rush to meet his ancestor, who may be their best chance to survive the plague. What's the rush? Out of the blue, another calm voice resonated in the hall. The voice, however, didn't sound like a human but a beast. What the? Who was that? Am I hearing things? The soldiers looked around frantically, trying to locate the voice's source. Creak, creak, creak. Igor's heart skipped a beat as he jerked his head around to look at the front door leading outside. The door shuddered, glowing for a second. Following the front door, the doors on the left and right sides also glowed and shuddered. Looking at the phenomenon on the doors, a curious soldier rushed towards the door. He tried to open the door, but no matter how hard he pushed, the door didn't budge. It's locked. Igor sighed. Someone locked us in the same hall. Now we are all stuck here to get infected by the plague. Igor just sat on the ground, rubbing his temples. Is it true? My lords, what should we do? A panic-stricken soldier questioned the protectors and Ivan. Every single soldier, including the soul refiners, felt weak and coughed up blood. In addition, some of the soldiers began to hallucinate and shouted in gibberish.
Break the door. One of the protectors barked as a group of soldiers limped towards the front door.
It's too late. We are done for. Those who heard Igor panicked more. Visit. For a better user experience, shut up, Igor. Ivan roared as he couldn't put up with Igor anymore. Ivan had enough in his mind, so he couldn't be patient with Igor as he used to. If House Rotgard's protectors and he got infected with the plague, it wouldn't be too long before the other families target them like vultures. Ironically, it's what they did to Voldegards. You can kill me if you want. Igor let out a deep breath as more and more soldiers fainted due to the fear toxin in the air. How does it feel, Lord Ivan? The same beastly voice they heard before resonated again. This time, the voice was louder and sounded close to them. At last, 3 dark figures descended to the throne hall through the opening directly above the throne. The trio wore full dark robes with their faces covered with black masks. Something told Igor that the masks were designed to filter the air thanks to his study under the dwarven masters in Sil Allery. How does it feel to be weak and helpless? One of the three talked, but no one could point out whom. They couldn't differentiate them from the voice, which sounded animalistic rather than human. The closer they got to the ground, the further everyone stepped back. "Who are you?" Ivan asked the trio, trying to conjure the celestial energy around him. However, he felt no connection with the energy around him. Unfortunately for them, the modified plague mixed with the fear toxin worked faster than the original plague. When someone was infected with the original plague, it would take 2 to 3 days to completely lose connection with the energies. But Michael's handiwork boosted the plague's effect and made anyone who breathed the fear toxin lose connection with the energies in a few minutes. You ask the wrong question, Ivan. The right question is, how do you want to die? Michael asked Ivan, tilting his head. My lord. When the protectors saw Michael place his hand on Ivan's shoulders, they tried to rush towards him to protect him. However, as soon as they took a step forward, Gaia blasted away them with a powerful gust of force. Despite their weak status, the soldiers unsheathed their weapons to attack the intruders. Some even tried to cast spells. One who kills must be prepared to be killed. Michael grabbed Ivan's neck, and before Ivan could fight against his hold, Michael simply snapped his neck. Since Ivan lost his connection with the celestial energy, his body became weak. Thus, Michael could simply snap his neck like a twig. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a fusion stage. Level 10 Cultivator. The reward is 750,000 experience points and 10,000 badass points. My lord! The soldiers and the protectors screamed, seeing Ivan's lifeless body hitting the ground. His eyes were still wide open and contained a hinge of shock and horror. Igor, who hated Ivan to the core, surprisingly felt relieved and had a tinge of joy seeing Ivan's body. The protectors are mine to kill. After killing Ivan, Michael quickly instructed Gaia and Eve. He wanted the experience points of killing the fusion stage protectors. The rest? Gaia questioned Michael with a devilish grin behind her mask. The latest episodes are on Undersell website. Accept him, kill everyone. You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.